having your life ruined by people who have no idea who you are is the worst feeling in the world, Mary Kate Cornett said after tearing up. It makes you feel so alone. It's a horrible experience. That's a quote from Mary Kate Cornett, the 18-year-old Ole Miss freshman who was out of nowhere embroiled in a national controversy that led her to have to seek emergency housing on campus, to switch to online-only classes to get away from the harassment and the bullying on campus. And a big part of launching the rumor about her, Cole, falls on the Pat McAfee show. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. You're the Tolos, and 25 of you already tuned in, watching on the stream. The show is less than a minute old, and we appreciate you jumping on board immediately. So more of you can do that. Jump over to the Fan Upstate on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to watch the show live and chop it up with the other Tolos who comment there. Excited to see who jumps in. Hopefully we get a couple of newbies on the stream today, Cole. But this whole thing has been out in the news now for a little over a month. If you are under a rock and don't know who Mary Kate Cornett is by name, again, the 18-year-old Ole Miss freshman who was embroiled in a rumor that she didn't have anything to do with starting. The whole thing started with a rumor posted on Twitter by an account known as @MAGAGeddon on February 26th. The tweet specified that this young girl had had an affair with her boyfriend's father. Pat McAfee talked about it on his show and on his social media platforms. Again, she since received a slew of hateful comments online and on campus, had to move out of her dorm into emergency housing, had to switch to online courses. She has now sought legal representation and is suing Pat McAfee and ESPN, the platform that carries and simulcasts his show. And it's opened up a fascinating legal debate to start the show here today. Cole, I'm sure you watched the Pat McAfee show clip that was on. He had on Adam Schefter that day, and they were just sitting around shooting the you-know-what, talking about you-know-who. Didn't get into specifics, never said this particular young woman's name, used the word allegedly when talking about her, but did use some specific information, used the fact that she was at Ole Miss, that she was a Kappa Delta sorority girl, obviously pointing towards someone but not specifically naming names. And of course, when a situation like this happens, it brings out all the legal scholars on social media, right? Everybody who knows literally nothing about the law outside of I can go 10 miles over the speed limit on the interstate and probably not get pulled over. That's most people's extent of knowledge of the law. But everybody now is a legal expert over whether or not Pat McAfee is in danger of being sued and having to pay out for damages.
Yeah, when you talk about this woman, this female choosing to sue Pat McAfee, Diesel, and choosing to sue ESPN, the first thing that comes to my mind is three words: good for her. She absolutely should.
Yeah.
My initial thoughts, my initial response to the article, and I think a couple of weeks ago, we even had this in the Daily Wires or something because we briefly mentioned it. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I think as soon as it happened, maybe the day of or the day after, we had it in the Daily Wires, Diesel. But, I imagined, and maybe this was my fault for imagining and assuming, I imagined and assumed that a show like Pat McAfee on a network like ESPN would be above this, right? If I saw this come out from TMZ, would I be surprised? Absolutely not, right? If it were someone that continually reports things that sometimes may be true, using the word allegedly, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't probably shock you. Probably wouldn't shock the world. However, I think Pat McAfee here stooped below his standard of what his job responsibility is and is to do and is to perform. I mean, you call that a slow news day or what? I mean, we get text, must be a slow news day. Y'all are talking about this. I mean, you talk about stooping so low, Diesel, that you're bringing this up. And my question is, What does it gain? What do you gain by bringing this up as a show host? That's my biggest issue with it.
And they used legitimate sports conversation because they were at the NFL Combine. They had Adam Schefter on the show with him. They used that as the entry point to bring this conversation up. They were talking about, what are we scouting Jackson Dart's dad down there, make sure he's not up to anything. I think that's how they brought it up on the show. And Adam Schefter was smart enough to say, "Ooh, guys, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole."
Good for him.
Like he said, "No, sir, not talking about this conversation." So the question is, Tolos, do you believe that she has a case, that she has the ability potentially to win a defamation case against Pat and ESPN? JB says, not a surprise, McAfee is involved in a scandal. It's interesting, Cole, that you use the words Pat McAfee stooped below his standard. I don't think this is Pat McAfee stooping below standard. I think this is Pat McAfee's standard. I think, lowest common denominator, frat boy locker room conversation is Pat McAfee's standard. And is it funny sometimes? Sure. But when that's what your show is, when it's built around, childish controversy, that's who you are. You're not stooping below any standard. It is who you are.
I just think this is crossing a line, is my point, right? When I say
absolutely
stooping below a
is.
standard, I mean, look, whether or not he upholds the standard is on him. However, what we can agree on is he has a standard he's supposed to use and live by and do his job by. Mm-hmm. Whether he does that or not, that's on him. And obviously everybody else has a different opinion on Pat, but he crossed the line, and there should be. If there's not a standard, there should be a standard here is my point.
So what is the case as we see it now? And this is very much in its infancy. And as this thing continues to progress, we do plan to have on our fantastic Odyssey legal insider. Try to get her on earlier today. Just booked solid on a Thursday. I'm not going to be here tomorrow, so we couldn't bring her on together tomorrow. But this thing will continue to develop. And as it does, we'll get Amy Dash back on the show. But as we see it right now, what is the case against Pat and what is the defense for Pat and his show? As I see it right now, the case against Pat McAfee is that he fanned the flames of this internet rumor.
Yeah.
That he talked about it in generally specific, and I understand that's an oxymoron, but generally specific language referring to an Ole Miss Kappa Delta sorority girl. And that right there is leading down a direction. That is the case against Pat McAfee. The defense for Pat McAfee is that he was not specific about the individual person that he was talking about. And that he used the word allegedly, and that there was no specific mention, and he didn't start the rumor, right? He didn't start a rumor and saying, "Hey, I think there's this girl. Her name is Mary Kate Cornett. She's a freshman at Ole Miss, and I think she did this." He didn't start the rumor. He picked up on a news story, on a rumor, not a news story. Let me rephrase that. He picked up on a rumor, believed it to be true enough to bring it to his show, to talk to experts with gravitas and weight behind them like Adam Schefter about it, and then fan the flames, and this thing got bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, there's no saying that this story would not have reached some equivalent form of it would have reached some equivalent fever pitch without Pat McAfee fanning these flames, but Pat has a massive show. He's got 3.5 million followers on social media. His show is watched by a lot of people every single day.
I think her dad said it well when he was talking about this incident a few days ago, Diesel. Justin Cornett, the dad again of Mary Kate, he said, when you have a microphone and you have a platform, you have a responsibility, again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, to take on that role with the respect of the people you report on being paramount. If this were to happen to him, his daughter, his wife, someone he loves, he sure wouldn't like it. When you have a microphone, you have a responsibility, and it needs to be taken seriously. And I think, I understand that he used words like allegedly, and he didn't start it. And again, to your point, if he didn't bring it up, somebody else would have somebody would have brought. But the point is,
but then Barstool would be the one in hot water, not Pat.
It's hard for me to defend Pat McAfee at all here. I think what Justin Cornett, Mary Kate's father, said is dead on. That's what I go back to. I don't want to say he's lost credibility, but he is. I mean, we've talked about it how many times on this show. When you are a broadcaster, a journalist, you're supposed to go through media ethics classes. You're supposed to go take courses throughout college where you learn what to do, what not to do. And I think this comes down to ethics, right? I think this is just an ethical mishap on the part of Pat McAfee. Here's what I think disappoints me the most. I don't know Pat personally, obviously. But Diesel, do I expect Pat McAfee to come off the ledge, come down, apologize for what happened? Do we expect that? I don't. I don't know if you do. I don't expect Pat McAfee to be that humble and say, you know what, I made a massive mistake. If he were to do that, maybe he could gain a little bit of my respect back.
Sure.
It's a messy situation, and I think Pat McAfee 100% needs to do the right thing and make it right because, to your point earlier, her life has been completely altered. I don't want to say destroyed, but it's been altered.
It leads you to the place where somebody like this chooses to leave their school of choice, to abandon their friends and the relationships that they've built on campus, undergo all the stress and strain of transferring to another school, potentially changing her name, wiping all of her social media accounts and starting over. Like, this is what it leads to, right? These are the real world ramifications because somebody doxed her image, they doxed her phone number, they doxed her name, which means they put all this stuff out there on the internet. And in one of her interviews recently, she said she was getting hundreds of phone calls a day, calling her all form of, whore, slut, kill yourself, all these horrible things, right? And don't have to tell anybody about how bad and how negative online and in-person bullying can be. We've all seen the Dateline stories about that. Yeah. So the question really is, does this qualify as defamation? Because this is a defamation case. And we couldn't get our Odyssey legal analyst on the show today on such short notice, but I did watch a whole lot of videos with a whole bunch of legal experts talking about this, about what the definition of defamation is and whether or not this meets the standard therein, and if there's a case involved. And the experts that I've seen do believe that there is a defamation case here. Whether or not Mary Kate Cornett and family wins this case, well, that remains to be seen. But legal experts believe that what Pat did on his show, does meet the definition of defamation. Defamation can be automatic if you say certain things. If you accuse someone of being a criminal, having a disease, or if you accuse somebody about their sexual conduct. That category, the third category, a sexual conduct category, falls under the defamation per se. Defamation per se refers to a type of defamatory statement so inherently damaging that the law presumes harm to the plaintiff's reputation, meaning the plaintiff doesn't need to prove specific damages, and the statement is actionable on its face. So legal experts do believe that this is a defamation per se case against Pat McAfee and ESPN.
Well, of course it is, because if you know anything about what defamation is, Diesel, if it ruins or hurts someone's reputation and it's not true, I mean, it's it. That's all you need. And again, if they can prove it, obviously, to my understanding, to my knowledge, it needs to be false, right? Whatever was said needs to be false. If it was facts he was reporting on, I don't know how much legs they'd have to stand on there, Diesel. But if it was a false statement and it went that public and there's damages, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. It'd be an easy win. It'd be an easy case to win. And I'll tell you this, it's not like this girl and her family are just creating problems. You know how
they didn't deserve this,
right? You know how some people get in a car wreck and all of a sudden, they everything's hurt.
They hired Jackie Childs from Seinfeld.
This is not creating a problem. This is, to your point, extreme damages that has extremely altered. What did you say? She was 18 years old? An 18-year-old's life. I think that's the hard part about it.
Her legal representation has said, quote, Pat's show amplified this story to the worst corners of the internet to millions of sports fans to get a few more clicks. And while they don't have to deal with it afterwards, she has to deal with it for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So it really is going to be fascinating how this comes down to. Now, in order to prove it for the sake of damages, her representation would have to prove that he knowingly spread a false rumor. Maybe all that Pat McAfee actually did was buy into and believe a story and hype it up without fact-checking it, in which case this may ultimately come down to what you said before, an ethical issue.
Yeah,
and this comes down to his employer, ESPN, hitting him with a massive slap on the wrist and say, don't you ever do that again, or they may fire him. You know, they may end up canceling the show and say, we don't need this kind of negative karma or negative situation around us.
This is my opinion. I think this is a fireable offense. I really do. I just, you're talking about someone's life. You're talking about someone's, they're not 94 years old. They're 18. Their whole life's in front of them, right? You have to look at it case by case.
And she's not a public figure.
No, and that's what's hard about it, man. She is now, right?
She is now, right. She didn't want to be.
She didn't want to be, and I think, will ESPN fire him? I don't think so, but do I think it is a fireable offense? 100%. Now, I want to be very clear. If Pat McAfee, in the style of which he does his show that you talked about, if he truly believes he made a mistake, if he truly does the right thing and says, look, I messed up, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right, then I might think a little bit different about him, right? But if he's going to tuck his tail and run and avoid it and not acknowledge it and not, deal with it, when you mess up, you deal with it. When you make mistakes, you deal with them, whatever it is in life, and I think that's what he needs to do here.
Yeah, to this point, it appears on the surface that he's digging his heels in, saying, I did nothing wrong. I'm not going to come out and apologize. I'm not going to change my stance on this. Look, how many times, Cole, have we heard in the case of famous athletes and musicians and actors and things like that, when a woman comes out and makes a false allegation, people want that woman to be punished, right? So is there an equal push for the opposite in situations like this? Can Pat McAfee and what Boston, whatever his name is, the guy on his show, Boston Connor, who was kind of egging the conversation on, can they be held responsible for the additional, like the rebound off of this? This whatever this account was, MAGA, whatever, and I'm saying that's because that's actually what the name of the account was, without giving the guy any additional play here. He posted this rumor. Pat McAfee got a hold of it. He spread it. And then other people did really terrible things with it. That's where it comes down to Pat McAfee's responsibility and culpability. Maybe not in a legal sense, maybe not in a financial restitution sense, but very much in an employment sense.
Kane says, guys, Pat McAfee can't be fired by ESPN. It's his show. They may not distribute it anymore, but his show will keep going. Tell me why ESPN can't fire Pat McAfee.
They can take him off the air.
Right.
Yeah, his show existed before ESPN picked it up.
Yeah, but
they simulcast his show. Now, they could take him off the air.
Right, and that would be canning him, right? I mean, that
in a way,
technically. Yeah. Brandon on the Facebook stream says, love the Pat McAfee show, and him game day when they brought him on, he is very appealing to the younger generation. ESPN knew that. That's why they put him on the position that he's in. That being said, he can be extremely unprofessional when it comes to broadcasting, but is good at what he does. If you ask me, he is the Johnny Manziel of broadcasting. He does.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing, Brandon.
Well, again,
I'm not sure that's a good thing. Johnny Manziel is not exactly known as a good guy.
Again,
so you're saying Pat is really good at being a jerk?
Well, and again, I don't think Brandon means it's a good thing. I don't think he says it's a good thing.
I know.
I just, it's tough because we talked about standard. He seems to walk that line a little bit too many times. JB says, that's right, Kane. He'll go back to YouTube if ESPN. Yeah, I understand that. He'll go back to YouTube, but ESPN does employ him on their airwaves.
They could fire him from game day.
Yeah.
And not pay him to come on College Game Day anymore. Look, his energy is fantastic. When he is using his energy for good, his energy is infectious, and it's great.
On the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, Hurricane Jeff says Pat McAfee is also an announcer for the WWE. actually more like a color analyst for them, they may cut him loose pretty quick. JT and Greer says, I say it'll get swept under the rug because of who it is, and he has money and good lawyers. Not saying that's right, but that's how it will probably come out. JT and Greer agree with that. Not that it's right, but let's see. Percy says, fire him and replace him with Stephen A. Smith and Cole and Diesel. That's a good possibility. Very good. I love Stephen A. Smith. I love Stephen A. Smith. That'd be a great show. The three of us. Texter says, Pat's position at ESPN is unjustly favored, creating an unfair situation for others who lost their jobs for much less. Yeah.
Think about it this way, Cole. We are in a shifting, socio-political environment where we're moving away from, some of the hyper wokeness of the last 5 to 10 years. I think if this had happened like 6-7 years ago, he'd be out on his ass immediately.
He might be.
He'd have been fired immediately.
Yeah, he could be. T. Swizzle says he did say he was the mayor of Cocktown. Remember that? College game day? He did say that. That's true. He did. He was pretty amped up there for college game day. Kane says the ratings will tank. That will be a good thing. It's a good conversation, though. Hopefully he does the right thing. I hate it. I hate that we're having the conversation, right? People do make mistakes, but like I said, I'm more interested of what Pat does now, Diesel, after the mistake's been made. We'll see if he does anything. Coming up next, though, this team in March Madness Final Four on Saturday will win if. That's next. This team wins if. That is where we're going in this segment, just 2 days away now from the Final Four. So we'll give our thoughts. We'll remind you, Tolos out there, who we picked in our bracket, because today's Diesel's Friday. He won't be able to give you his picks tomorrow. Obviously, we've already made our picks from the bracket, but we'll tell you what we think is going to happen. But let's do a little this team wins if, as we look ahead just a couple of days away now from the Final Four. Tolos, want to hear from you as well at 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663. Give us your thoughts on what will happen if. Diesel, let's start with the Florida Gators, who we eliminated their mascot yesterday pretty quickly in the mascot challenge. I want to hear your reaction to my thoughts on the Florida Gators. JB already getting his thoughts on Florida wins if. I want to hear your Florida wins if as well, Tolos. Florida wins on Saturday. If their guard depth continues to be what their guard depth has been all season long, Diesel, their depth at the guard position is a huge difference maker. They also have a big-time shot maker in Clayton. JB just mentioned him. Florida has a 4-player post rotation that, in my mind, will make life extremely tough on Janai Broome. The Gators are also a top 10 team from beyond the arc. Florida will advance to the national championship, in my opinion, for the first time since 2007. Don't forget about a guy in Elijah Martin, who is Florida's second leading scorer. Martin brings an athletic pop, shot-making ability to a team that has a lot of depth, as I talked about a minute ago. Florida's backcourt is just as loaded as the front court, but Martin is the clear number 2 behind Walter Clayton Jr. That is my Florida wins if. Any disagreement or additional thoughts on the Florida Gators there?
Well, I think Florida, at number one, has got to hold serve behind the three-point line. They've got to limit three-point efficiency. They've got a really good defense, 9th nationally over the course of the season. Limit opponents to 29% shooting percentage from three-point range, about 46% from two-point range. Both of those really good, so they've got to be strong on defense. They've just got to hold serve there. Offensively wise, Cole, I think they're going to be fine in this game, averaging a whole lot of points, 128 points per 100 possessions. That makes them one of the best offenses in the country in a long time. So they just got to be themselves, right? If they play Florida basketball, I think they're going to win this game fairly easily.
JB says Florida wins if Walter Clayton Jr. goes for 30 both games, and Florida wins the rebounding in both games. The rebounding obviously important as well. JB, texter from the 820, says Florida wins if they get off the bus. Now, I don't know if it's going to be that easy. That might be a little disrespectful to Janai Broome, texter. A little bit. Janai Broome, Auburn's a good team, right?
Yeah.
Might be a little bit disrespectful.
They're also going to have to stay out of foul trouble because Todd Golden has a tendency to leave players with 2 fouls in the game in the first half. He does not take players out, so he doesn't play cautious with fouls in the first half. Leaves them in. Got to stay clean on fouls. And I think they're going to be okay in both of those games.
T. Swizzle says, to me, the offense has been running through Pettiford. Feel like a lot is on home to play as well. You and I both obviously have Florida advancing, but on the flip side of the coin, Auburn wins if. Tolos, what is your Auburn wins if? Mine is very simple when it comes to Auburn. Auburn wins if their best player shows up and shows out. Diesel in a banner year for the SEC. Janai Broome led the league in rebounds and blocks and was top 5 in scoring and field goal percentage to boot. He has led Auburn to a 32-5 record, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, as we all know. Auburn will have to rebound and hold their own against the Florida Bigs. That's probably, for me, what concerns me the most when it comes to this matchup. But if Auburn wins, They're going to have to hold their own against those Florida bigs. As I talked about, a four-man rotation there. Chaney, Cardwell, and Broom need to have their best games yet. Somehow, some way, you have to get Clayton with the most energy late in the game. What do I mean by that? Late in the game, Walter Clayton Jr. Diesel is a shot maker. He is a guy who shows up when the lights are bright. We've seen that. To me, Auburn wins if they can bring the same energy in the fourth quarter when guarding Walter Clayton as they do in the first, I said quarter, late in the game because we play halves in college basketball and men's. If they can bring the same energy defensively late in the game as they do early, I think they might have a shot. But ultimately, when we talk about picks, I'm going to go with the Florida Gators here.
Yeah, so am I. And it would certainly help if Auburn can get themselves out to a 10 to 12-point lead and maintain it. They're really good at that, right? So they don't really allow runs for teams to catch up. They did it against Michigan State, a 2-seed, a really good team. They got out to that 9, 10, 11-point lead, and they just kind of held them at arm's length for the majority of that game. So a lot of credit deserved to the Auburn defense. And this Auburn defense has been really good in this tournament. It's crazy as the most points they gave up was to a 9-seed in Creighton, but they gave up 63 to Alabama State, 65 to Michigan, and 64 to Michigan State. So defense, just do what you do. Keep him at arm's length. Janai Broom's got to be good, and he's got to hit some free throws because he stinks at the free throw line.
Does it almost feel like if Auburn wins this game, and this might be a little unfair, Diesel, to Janai Broom, but to me it almost feels like if Auburn's going to win, Janai Broom's going to have the Superman cape on. Like he's got to carry the team and have just a 30, 35-point game and really it's not fair to say that because the rest of the players are really talented. But I just feel like if they're going to win, it's going to have to be on his shoulders. Michael Noctur on the Twitter stream, where you can watch the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I think that's Buckeye Mike. Oh, it is Buckeye Mike. I'm sorry, I didn't read the message. Buckeye Mike says, go Houston. JB says, Auburn wins if Broom has a monster game and they play great defense. Again, I agree, JB. I think he's going to have a monster game, unfortunately. It could happen. It could. But I think he's going to have to really carry the weight. Diesel, let's go to the 9. What do they put these games at? 9:30, 8.5 now, right? Is that when these games start? So the late game Saturday.
You think there's somebody with a stopwatch over there and saying, hold.
Now, go.
Now, tip off. Now, go.
Hurry. I don't know, but
it's 6:38, 45.
Right. The stopwatches will be out in full force. Houston, Duke. So this one to me, Diesel, is where I'm still having a tough time with this one. Obviously, you and I made predictions already in the bracket, but I'm having a tough time here with Houston and Duke. I think this one's going to be a really good game. I believe Houston wins if. Diesel, Houston wins if they can run a marathon and not a sprint. What do I mean by that? It's easy to go up against Duke for 15 minutes and hold your own, right? But Saturday night, Houston's going to have to run a marathon. Cryer leads Houston in scoring on the year, scoring 16.8 points per game despite a 5-point dud against Purdue in the Sweet 16. Their primary offensive hub makes plays for himself, others. Diesel, this matchup features 2 elite defensive teams as the Cougars are number 1 in the country and opponent points per game. When at their peak, Duke's the best team in the country on both ends of the floor, ranking 9th in points per game, 7th in opponent's points per game, 6th in field goal percentage, and 4th in opponent field goal percentage. About as complete as you can get. Houston, again, going back to the marathon, my mind, Houston will have to have the legs, right? Milos Uzan is the only transfer Houston picked up last offseason. He's proven to be elite this season. He leads the team in assists while averaging 11.6 points per game, shooting 45% from three-point range, which is really good. He's upped his game in the postseason for Houston, including a 25-point outburst versus Arizona in the Big 12 title game, 22-point game against Purdue. I think that if you're talking about Houston winning, they're going to have to do what Clemson did, right? We go back to Clemson-Duke and be able to go wire to wire against this really complete Duke team.
Yeah, Houston's going to need to be just absolutely lights out from three. That's what they're going to have to do to keep up. Cooper Flagg is fantastic. Con Knippel is fantastic. They are just elite from top to bottom at Duke. And Duke is going to go on runs, and they can score in bunches. Now, Houston's defense, like you said, really, really good. But they're going to have to find a way to keep up. And that's going to be, potentially a little bit of a problem for Houston. They've got to keep up. They're not scoring a ton either. Yeah, they scored 81 against Gonzaga.
Yeah.
But against power competition in this tournament, they scored 62 against Purdue and 69 against Tennessee. They played fantastic defense in both of those games. Can they replicate that in some way? Can they hold Duke to 70? And Duke scores a lot.
They do.
Duke scores a lot. They'll have to hold Duke to 70, 75 points, and they're going to have to shoot the lights out to be able to keep up with them.
Buckeye Mike says defense wins championships. Houston will shut them down. One thing that I just thought about a few minutes ago that Diesel, I don't think's talked about enough when it comes to tournament-style basketball. Let's talk about Duke-Houston, for example. I don't think this is talked about enough. For Houston to win this game in a one-game format, of all the games they've played this year, they have to be pretty much perfect Saturday night.
Yeah.
Like pretty much, I'm not saying shoot 50% from three, 50 from the floor, but Diesel, I just feel like they've got to be as close to perfect. Don't you think that of all the games they've played, they're going to have to play their best game in order to win this game? Of all the games they've played this year, some really good games, I feel like they're going to have to play their best game of the season, which is tough in a one-game format against Duke. It's just a tough one. I don't know where to go.
Yeah, this is a tough one, and they're going to have to be able to answer, too. Like a lot of teams can score enough to stay with Duke for a little while, but Duke will start to pull away on you, and that's because they got so many guys who can score from all over the court. And if Duke's hitting twos, you got to be hitting threes to stay with them. If they hit threes, you got to be able to answer. Duke does a fantastic job rebounding. If you can limit the rebounds for them on the Houston offensive side of the court, get second chance opportunities, you got to clean up the glass. But unfortunately, Cole, that's not really how a lot of teams play anymore. It's a three and retreat. I'm going to jack up a three, and if I miss it, we're not going after the rebound. We're getting back to play shutdown defense.
Thomas at 423 on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, we handled Bama, and we're going to do the same thing to the Cougars. Go Blue Devils. I like that, Thomas, at the 423. And that leads me to the last one here, Diesel. Duke wins if. I think on Saturday night, Duke wins if Mr. Everything is Mr. Everything. I'm not saying he has to go for 40, but if he just gives what he's given all season long, and I'm talking about Cooper Flagg here, a guy who leads college basketball in box plus minus, which is an estimate of players' contributions on a per 100 possession basis, and defense win shares on a 35-3 team with top 5 units, both offense, defense. Cooper Flagg leads the Blue Devils in scoring, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. In terms of metrics, Diesel, Duke and Houston are the top teams in college basketball. In KenPom, Duke is number 1, Houston's number 2, ironically, right? The Blue Devils have the top offensive rating as their 83.7 points per game is top 10 in the country, while the Cougars have the best defensive rating with the top scoring defense in the country at 58.3. Think about that, 58.3 points allowed per game. Here's where I do throw caution, and tell me if you push back on this. On the other hand, Houston is 1-3 against KenPom top 5 offenses this year. That only win was over an injured, beat-up Texas Tech team. Does that throw a little caution? Maybe in terms of here's where I am. I want to pick Houston. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Could they win? Yeah, they could win. But 1-3 against KenPom top 5 offenses, Diesel. That's a stat. That might throw a little caution.
Yeah, I think Duke wins this game if they rebound the ball well and play keep away from Houston. Duke is a big team. They are a tall team, and they shoot the ball well from all over the court. And that's going to be a problem for Houston. Like I said, if Houston can hit a lot of threes to stay with them and answer back and forth, keep this game close late, they might have a chance. But Duke is just bigger than them, basically across the board, and that gives, of course, second chance, third chance opportunities.
And you and I both have Duke and Florida advancing, right?
Yes, we do.
So I think we've made pretty solid picks there. I do. Look, we'll talk about it Monday if it happens. If it is Duke and Florida, we'll have one day to talk about it. But Diesel, that'll be a great game. Duke just looks on another level right now. It's tough to pick against them.
They are very, very good. When we come back, Cole, what a metaphor for the Braves season so far.
Oh, we got to go
there.
there.
The performance that we saw last night in L.A. Were there any bright spots for these Atlanta Braves? Hint, no, there weren't. Yeah. We're going to talk about it next. Well, if you just looked at the box score of last night's Braves-Dodgers series finale, you might say to yourself, must have been a pretty good game. Seems like the Atlanta Braves were pretty close, right? Like, they made some progress. They only lost by 1. The problem is, if you only read the box score, you didn't see that the Braves were really good for 2 innings and then sucked big time after that. Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, the Atlanta Braves are now 0-7 on the season. Got some runs early, scored a couple in the first, scored a couple in the second, and then the bats just shut down. They were stranding runners left and right for the rest of the game, Cole.
I guess the bright spot, and again, I'll tell you how I feel. But I guess if you try to have to find a bright spot, I guess you can say Atlanta's pitching was, for the most part of the game, was pretty good until it wasn't, right? They gave up 2 in the second, 1 in the fourth. Through the first 7, the Braves pitching was pretty good last night. Those 2 in the 8th hurt. The 2 in the 8th hurt, and then here's my problem. Diesel, you come up in the 9th inning, and I can't remember who it was for the Dodgers, strikes out. 1 out. Next batter, Shohei Ohtani. You ever heard of him? Pretty good. Maybe the
solid career ahead of him, you know?
Best player on the planet. Maybe a Snicker. You want to put him on base here? You want to not pitch to him? No, we'll pitch to him. Okay, let's pitch to him. Snicker pitch to him. Okay, we get to call in. 1 out, game's over. And just like that, Diesel, it was not a good night. Obviously, the Shohei Ohtani walk-off. Look, this team had a 5-0 lead last night. 5-0 lead. Dodgers got 2 back in the second to cut it to 5-2. It's just at this point, like, I know what day was it? Tuesday or Wednesday when McAfee called in, and we're 2 or 3 games in. Well, that conversation's over. I mean, this team stinks. This team absolutely stinks. And here's the reality of it. When you're not good, someone is responsible. That's a fact. It doesn't matter who. Someone's responsible. Diesel, this is the worst start the Braves have had. I can't imagine that good. Here's the bad part. I can't imagine that good comes out of this season. And we have so much more baseball to play. But you're talking about a team that's 0-7. You're 0-7. It's pathetic.
Yeah. I mean, bright spots. And again, these are all in air quotes. And this is searching hard for a very thin silver lining on these clouds. Nick Allen, shortstop, had 2 hits. It's like, who the heck is Nick Allen? I don't know. Never heard this guy's name before. But he got 2 hits for the Braves last night.
Yeah.
Ozzie Albies got 2 hits. Good for him. Only 2 players on the team that hit better than 1 for the entire night. Now, Marcelo Zuna went 1 for 2, but he walked 3 times. So he's clearly seeing the ball well right now. He's laying off bad pitches. That's a good thing. His on-base percentage is going to be up there. The problem is the Braves are stranding a lot of runs. They went 5 for 15 last night with runners in scoring position. That can't happen.
Sure.
5 for 15 with runners in scoring position. If they just improve that to 7 or 8, boom, game's won. You've won the game. You know, like it's absurd.
Here's the updated worst starts to a season in Atlanta Braves history. 1988, the team started 0-10. 2016, they started 0-9. 1990, that was right around the time of the rebuild. 1919, they started 0-9. 1980, Diesel, they started 0-7. And 2025, an 0-7 start. So with the Braves being 0-7, after being swept by the Dodgers and the Padres, which I predicted, no team in MLB history has ever made the playoffs after starting the season 0-7. It's been 42 years. Yeah, ouch is the right word. 42 years since any such team has even finished with a winning record. If that right there isn't the silver lining. Did you hear? 42 years since a team that started 0-7, Diesel, finished with a winning record. It's over. The season is done.
I mean, it's time to switch everybody to these torpedo bats. Get everybody on the juiced bats as much as you can. Cheat if you have to. I don't care.
Yeah, that's the only hope. But heck, what's weird about the torpedo bats is the last 2 games, the Yankees can't hit. They've lost 2 in a row. It's like, well, what happened? Torpedo bats were great. And now all of a sudden, torpedo bats, they've lost 2 in a row to a good team in Arizona who was in the World Series just a couple of years ago. But it's frustrating.
Should we make a pact, Cole? Because I don't like seeing you like this. Should we make a decision that we do not talk about the Atlanta Braves again, and I mean at all, until they're a 500 ball club?
Well, we'll never talk about them.
Well, that's fine, but I don't want to see you get upset, right? Life is too short to see your friends in pain, and you're in pain right now.
I'm a Cowboys fan and a Braves fan. My whole life is being upset.
Have you ever tried Jack Daniels?
Yeah, this is where my life is in sports fandom. I mean, I'm so used to this, it's not even funny.
Dewey says Braves lost this game in the 6th and the 7th inning when they failed to score with bases loaded, no outs, and the 7th inning. Why on earth would you leave your struggling closer in for 2 innings?
Agree. 100%.
Dewey, did you use ChatGPT to write that? Because that was a very salient
It's a
point.
good text, right?
Wow.
I'm telling you, all of a sudden the Braves season started and Dewey's like the smartest guy in the room. I love it. We're going to get into the portal conversation with like the 8.5 million players in the portal, but let's keep it on Braves for a second, Diesel, in the next segment. I don't want to say this, but I think I'm going to say it. That's next. Will Hawkins on the Facebook stream, where you can watch the show with the 76 other Tolos, says, "Go Hub City Spartanburgers." I like that. I hadn't seen a lot of cheering for the Spartanburgers yet, Diesel. Their season is so close. Obviously, Wofford Upstate played over there Tuesday night, and they scrimmaged, had an exhibition, whatever you want to call it, against the Hickory Crawdads last night. And then they're at Aberdeen tomorrow. So the real season begins tomorrow. Again, they have 3, 6, 9 road games to open the 2025 season before the home opener, the official home opener, even though the ballparks had 2 nights in a row of baseball against Bowling Green.
So you and I were there last Tuesday. So that would be a week and 2 days ago, 9 days. And then you were there 2 nights ago. On Tuesday.
Yep.
What do you think they got everything that was still to be completed last Tuesday finished in time for this past Tuesday?
Sure did look like it.
Yeah?
Sure did look like it.
Shout out to the crews who get that thing put together.
I didn't notice anything like, the faucet not hooked up to the sink or anything like that, you know, water running. I mean, the credit card machines worked. People were, it was just hard to find anything to nitpick, which is crazy. But, yeah, you're right. Shout out to them. It's awesome. Will, did you go last night? Let us know. Let us know if you went to the exhibition game. Diesel, I don't want to say this because people will say I'm an idiot, but I've been called worse, so I'm going to say it. I think sooner rather than later, the Brian Snitker tenure needs to come to an end. I think Brian Snitker's time in Atlanta has run its course. I think Brian Snitker has done a lot of good for the Atlanta Braves, but we are talking about a guy who's 70-something years old, who has been around the organization longer than anyone. You talk about just the Braves organization from minor league to major league. He's been around forever. And again, I give Brian Snitker a lot of credit for what he's done. He's brought a lot of good elements to the Atlanta Braves. 2021 obviously brought home a World Series, and that right there in itself is hard to match. Now, you could argue, if you really want to be against Brian Snitker, you could argue, Diesel, that before the trade deadline, they were a 500 baseball team in 2021, and Alex Anthopoulos pulled one out of the ether for old Brian Snitker, right, in 2021. Now, he still had to get the guys ready to play and motivate them and have the right guys in the game. But I think the time has come, and I don't know if it'll happen during the season. I think we talked about this the other day. My opinion might change now. They have only really been competitive twice in the 7 games, once against the Padres, and then last night they were competitive for a few innings. But Diesel, I think ultimately, I don't know how your viewpoint is on if it's better to rip the Band-Aid off now and go ahead and get a clean start, but I do think we are seeing the beginning of the end of the Brian Snitker era.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to change eventually, and the manager, the head coach, is the easiest person to point at. And
buck stops with him, right?
They've had opportunities to change and shake up staff and make some improvements there, but it hasn't resulted in anything. So here's what I think the Braves ought to do, Cole. You know that Tampa is embroiled in a venue crisis. Mm-hmm. There's a push to move the team. I think what they ought to do is go after Kevin Cash down with Tampa.
Okay.
He's a young manager. He's had to do an awful lot with nothing when it comes to a payroll there. His teams make the playoffs. I think he's the guy, right? If you can put the might of the Atlanta Braves farm system behind him, I think Kevin Cash could do great things.
You know, at this point right now, and let's just go for a minute. If they were to do something midseason, if this continues to be really, really bad, if Brian Snitker were to be dismissed during the season, I don't know if they would just promote from within for the time being, right?
I don't think you could get Kevin Cash mid-season.
And again, I don't know if you could get anybody really.
Sure.
that's in the game that would be worth it. I mean, obviously, you see what it's interesting. You see what Texas did a couple of years ago in hiring Bruce Bochy, a guy who was out of the game for a year, I believe, and was super successful in San Francisco. One of the only club managers to win multiple World Series at more than one destination. But I just think ultimately you're seeing the end of it. I don't know if the end happens during the season. I don't know if the end happens Diesel next December or November or whatever it may be, or when the Brave season officially ends. I just think that we're on the way out. And ultimately, if that's the case, I say go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Now, I'm not saying fire the guy today, but if Alex Anthopoulos already on the 3rd of April has his mind made up, then I think he should go ahead and do it. But I can tell you this, I don't think Alex Anthopoulos is there yet. Diesel, I don't know Alex Anthopoulos. I hadn't heard this from anybody. I just don't think Alex Anthopoulos is having the same conversation we're having quite yet. Now, if it were to go more and more south, obviously that conversation could be had. JT and Greer on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, I agree with Cole. Snit needs to be replaced with someone who can light a fire under these guys. And, JT, what's really frustrating is Brian Snitker's kind of to blame, Diesel, because he is ultimately, like we talked about, he is the coach. The buck stops with him. The offense, though, here's where I think Snitker's on the line. Someone in that organization has to answer for the horrible offense over the last 140 games. Again, as I told you yesterday, since May of last year, the Braves are 70 and now 71. So they're below 500 now since May of last year. Somebody's got to answer to me, Diesel. If I'm Alex Anthopoulos, I have Brian Snitker in the room with everybody else, and I said, look, if nobody wants to get fired, I need to know why our offensive production 2 years ago was the best in the major leagues, and now all of a sudden it's the worst. I need an answer for that. And if nobody can answer, y'all's you-know-what is grass, because somebody's responsible. And that's the whole point. Somebody is responsible every time a team's good, every time a team's bad, and you just can't explain you go find the brightest baseball mind in the game right now and have them explain, Diesel, why the Braves' offensive production has just plummeted in 2 years. I don't know if they could. It's a tough spot.
I thought you were going to start singing Rockstar there by Smash Mouth.
Get your game on?
Yeah. Somebody once told me the Braves are going to roll me.
I hadn't heard that song in forever.
What? It's everywhere.
I hadn't heard it in a long time.
How do you not heard that song? You hear it in commercials all the time.
Texter from the 431 on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, fire Snit and make Chipper the interim. I had a buddy of mine this morning. We were talking about the Braves, and he said the same thing. And I know Chipper's already in a role in the organization, so it might be an easy transition. Look, I think I wouldn't hate that. Since he's already in the organization, I don't know if Chipper would do it or not, but if it were to come to that point and Brian Snitker were to get fired, it would be intriguing to give it to Chipper.
So what is Chipper doing right now?
He's not an on-the-field role. Again, I don't know his exact title, but it's not a on-the-field role, to my knowledge.
So what makes, and I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong, Texter, what makes anybody think that Chipper Jones is qualified to be a manager of a Major League Baseball team? Because that feels like you just go for the lowest hanging fruit, that it's a feel-good hire.
Well, I don't think it'd be a long-term.
You hire Chipper, even if it's, and hey, he may turn out to be fantastic, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what his propensities are to be a manager in the major leagues, but I mean, that seems a little premature.
Well, here's the problem, or here's my response to that is, if he knew it was only going to be just to get you throughout the rest of the year, would it matter?
Shake it up.
Would it matter? Would it matter? I mean, who would do?
Can't do any worse.
No.
Yeah.
Would it matter? Right. So if Snit were to get fired in 60 games from now, I mean, it doesn't matter who you bring in, Diesel. If it's Chipper, if it's you go get Ron Washington back. I mean, I'm still salty about that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They stink. And again, I just think ultimately the Braves' biggest problem is something that they're unable to put a finger on when it comes to the offense or lack thereof. You cannot have guys on your roster, in your lineup, who are hitting below the 1. The 1. What do I mean? Let's go look and see if anything changed with Austin Riley. What's our old buddy Austin? Oh, good news. Austin Riley's now hitting 111. So he's upped it. Drake Baldwin, he's hitting .056. Again, Austin Riley, a couple of years ago, one of the best players in the game, with a bat in his hand, he's hitting 111. Ozzie Albies is, he's lighting it up right now, Diesel. He's batting 185. Matt Olson, he's batting 182. Jurickson Profar batting 200. Well, guess what? He's done. So, I mean, look, again, it just goes back to if I'm Alex Anthopoulos, if I'm management, if I'm the decision maker here, I want an answer on why we're in the position that we're in. Is it my fault? Have I dropped the ball and not brought in the people I need to bring in? Well, I just brought in Jurickson Profar. It's not my fault that, Jurickson got popped for 80 games. Somebody within the organization, all I'm asking, somebody's got to take a little responsibility for this, because this is an epic collapse in the last year. It's bad. It's really, really bad. And I just think we're seeing the beginning of the end of Brian Snitker. So let us know, Tolos, if I'm crazy, if you think I'm an idiot, disagree. On the text line, let's see, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Texter says, didn't the Cubs try that with David Ross and it didn't go so well? Again, Texter, I don't think that's if it were Chipper or the third, whoever it is, I don't think it's going to go well regardless. Again, you just throw, whoever's up there popping popcorn, throw him in. It doesn't matter if it's an interim. If that were to come to fruition, it really wouldn't matter. Texter from the 431 says he probably is not coaching material, but intriguing for sure, and will have people talking instead of chirping how bad they suck.
Yeah, but how long does that intriguing talk last if they continue to suck? Right? I mean, it's interesting from the moment it's announced that he's hired or rumored that he's going to be the guy up until like game number 5.
They keep losing.
If they keep losing, it's, oh, man, we screwed up. We shouldn't have hired Chipper. We still suck.
Here's okay, I'm glad you said that. Here's where I am now that you said that. The season's already over. You're not making the playoffs, so here's what I think will happen. I don't think Brian Snitker will get dismissed during the season because, Diesel, if they come home and host Miami and were to go to 0-10 or 1-9, you're not making the playoffs. So my point is, what is the purpose of bringing someone in as an interim just to have dirt thrown on their name and their reputation? There's no point. If the season's already a loss, the damage is done. Let Snitker ride it out into the sunset, and we'll find somebody in the offseason. There's no point in my mind of bringing somebody in.
You keep Brian Snitker around, and then you start your search
during the season.
But behind the scenes.
That's
because
right.
You're right. You don't want to potentially derail any coaching plans that Chipper Jones may have. Maybe he's just not ready to be a Major League Baseball manager, right? I mean, at that point, why not just do a revolving door? It's like, all right, well, let Smoltz do it for a couple of games. We'll have Glavine do it for a couple of games. And how about this guy or that guy or somebody who's popular with the fan base? I mean, at that point, you might as well just be giving out, manager for a day prizes and a box of Cracker Jacks.
Hey, I'll tell you this. I'll do you one better. Instead of saying Chipper needs to come be the new ball coach, I'll take him at third base right now. I'll take him at the plate. I mean, it can't be any worse. I mean, would Chipper Jones right now be worse than Austin Riley at 111? I mean, let's be honest. I know this is outlandish, but if you inserted Chipper Jones into the lineup, are you telling me he would have
Roger Dornham?
I mean, they're terrible.
Yeah, but he's old. And he hasn't swung a baseball, competitively swung a baseball bat. I'm pretty sure his bat speed's going to be a smidge slow when guys are up there throwing mid-90s.
Give him a torpedo bat and let him go. Austin Riley's been struck out 11 times already this season. 11 times. Hurricane Jeff on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line chimes in. He asks, out of curiosity, how often our teams who have gone on a losing streak at the beginning of the year, such as the Braves, are in right now. How many of those teams were on the road for all 7 games? Oh, you're saying at home. I mean, look, maybe it would have mattered, Hurricane Jeff. I don't know. Here's the problem. We all know that was a tough stretch.
I mean, but best case scenario, Cole, 7 games in, 3 against the Padres, 4 against the LA Dodgers. Mm-hmm. Well, what did you really expect, best case scenario, with your ace pitcher down, with one of your best and most exciting hitters down until May? I mean, like, best case scenario, you were talking about coming out of this 3-4?
Best case scenario with looking at 3 wins. I mean, 3 wins.
Knowing you're going to play 2 elite teams on the road, both at full strength, and you are severely hampered. Best case scenario was 3-4.
Yeah, I think 3 wins would have been fine for me. But, Diesel, the issue is, though, like, I understand that Strider's not there, and I get that, but my issue is the guys you have. The guys you have 2 years ago were the best in the game, and now they're not. So I'm with you. Acuna will help when he comes back. There's no doubt. But the guys that they have right now, like a coach.
Yeah, he can't do it by himself.
No, a coach's job is to what? A coach's job is to coach the guys that he has and not worry about. It's pathetic. It is. So Hurricane Jeff, I get it. Like, they were on the road in California. I mean, who else in baseball had a tougher 7 open up the season? You're probably right on that aspect that the Braves weren't set up. The Braves probably weren't set up with their injuries, and then Jurickson getting popped. It was a bad storm, Diesel, from the very beginning. Texter from the 431 says Snit won't be gone till late in the season unless it's just really bad. Then the Chipper deal would make more sense. Texter from the 431 says Chipper could definitely DH, right? Just throw him out there.
I genuinely want to know, did they not put Jurickson Profar through a full medical before bringing him in? Like, did they not test his blood? Like, where did this test that he tested positive in come from? Right? Was this something spring training? So you had time, right? These guys, they all do medicals, they all do blood workups and all that stuff. Did this not test positive on any of the blood work that the Braves doctors did? Test them to see what's in there?
I don't know, man.
I mean, come on.
It's bad.
This looks like the Braves didn't do their due diligence before bringing a guy in, because it feels like you would have found it in his system.
Well, I think
unless he was taking this during spring training.
But tell me if I'm wrong here. In order for the trade, like we saw with the Hornets and the Lakers, in order for the trade to go through, he has to pass the physical, right?
One would think.
You would think. Dewey on the text line says Ron Washington would be a great. Come on, Dewey. He's 72. Ron Washington's gone.
Might as well get Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, Ron Washington. I more than any Braves fan, I hated losing Ron Washington.
What about Paul Maneri?
Yeah, I mean, really, might as well, right? It doesn't matter. But again, that's where I just come back to it. It doesn't matter now. Like, when you dig yourself in an 0-7 hole, Diesel, it doesn't matter if Brian Snitker's out there or if, the best coach in the history of the game's out there, coach. It doesn't matter. Am I saying coaching doesn't matter? No, but the hole that you continue to dig yourself in, you better have more than a good coach if you want to get out of that hole. Again, it goes back to one very simple thing. History's not on your side here. You're 0-7, like I said, and in the 42 years, or let me go back, no team in MLB history has made the playoffs after starting the season 0-7. So history already tells you the season is done and it just begun. That's what I'm saying. That's why it doesn't matter if Snitker's the coach for the next month or 3 months or 5 months, or if they bring Chipper and Tom. It doesn't matter. It's a wash. You're not getting out of it. No need to throw dirt on somebody else's reputation and coaching, and it doesn't matter. This is, as Diesel, I've been a Braves fan my whole life. I think this is the worst. The rebuild was tough, but the Braves were still very competitive during the rebuild. Like, what was tough about that? You got rid of guys like Jason Hayward, who that was a gut punch, right? You got rid of guys like Justin Upton, who were not a bad player. They won some games. They contributed. That the team was competitive. I think this is worse than the rebuild. I think this is as close to rock bottom as I've been as a Braves fan. I mean, there's no – you started by saying what positives? There's no positives right now except for the drug test. That's it.
Early runs. That's the only positive.
Last night. And maybe the team charter plane has really good chocolate chip cookies. I don't know. Texter says from the 803, Danny Glover could come in as a manager. He did great with the Angels in their turnaround. Is Danny Glover still alive? Does anybody know? I mean, I hate to say that. Is Danny Glover alive? Yeah, let's go get him. Let's go get him. Anybody? Dewey says Ron Washington would be a strict daddy figure to the young guys and he was already there though, Dewey. He's gone. He's 72. That ship has sailed, if you will. So it's tough, man. It's disappointing, but as bad as I thought the Braves could be this year, I didn't think 7 games in I'd already be saying the season's a wash, but here we are.
Tolos, you see that snazzy hat that Cole Bryson is wearing? This awesome fitted blue fan upstate hat. We're going to have one of those next Wednesday when we're at 1500 Gear Highway in Travelers Rest. We want to see you out there. You could score that hat. You could score a Fan Upstate t-shirt. We'll have some Ingles gift cards to give away as well. Looking forward to seeing all you Travelers Rest Tolos next Wednesday for the show live at Ingles Markets at 1500 Gear Highway. When we come back, Cole, there is a brand new sports league in the works, and I know that you're going to drop everything to pay attention to this. I know that Cole Bryson is stoked for the upcoming 2028 Summer Games. He's already thinking about it. He's already trying to decide which countries he's going to bet on and root for in each individual event. I know who's going to win in one, Cole. It's going to be America because we're the best at it there is. Flag football. Like, do you remember when they announced flag football was coming to the Olympics? Did you even give a rip that it's coming?
I remember when it was announced. I think it would depend on.
Have you ever actually watched a flag football with interest? Not like
No.
I'm flipping around. There's literally nothing else on.
No.
Oh, flag football's
No.
on. Okay, I'll watch it. Well,
No.
the NFL with a bunch of big time investors, Cole, is trying to get a legitimate flag football league off the ground, and they're courting some big names. Some big names. And I know that you're going to
Aaron
jump
Rodgers.
right on. No. They'd have to put a bubble around him and say, nobody touch me, nobody talk to me. I'm just going to stand here. So the NFL is pumping a lot of money into men's and women's flag football leagues, but they don't want to be the only ones putting money in this thing. They are courting such companies as 776, a venture capitalist company, another venture capital company founded by Reddit founder Alex Ohanian and his wife, Serena Williams. They are talking to Michael Strahan's SMAC Entertainment. Ice Cube is apparently involved with one of these big investment groups, and TKO Holdings, the company that has both the WWE and UFC, are interested. So they got some big-time players in this thing.
And we're talking about outside of the Olympics, outside of a regular league.
So that's the hope, obviously, is with the Olympics coming up, that flag football will be the next, like, pickleball or the next curling or something like. They're trying to get going on a trend, and I think it's a stupid waste of money.
Well, here's
honestly.
the deal, though. What league involving the sport and game of football's worked other than the NFL? And I know right now
it hasn't.
What's the one going on? We talked about, is it the UFL happening right now?
ABCDFL?
AF, whatever it is. I don't watch it. I don't care to. Again, that whoever the investors are, they might have a lot. It's great. They may be loaded, but.
And this is supposedly the third best level of football, right? You got the NFL. College football is fantastic. And then the ABCDEFL is like right there. It's the guys that couldn't quite make the draft. It's minor league football. These are college guys, good players. Yeah. It should be a decent product. And I'm not saying it's bad football. It's not bad football. You even have big names coaching it, but nobody cares.
No, I don't even know. I'll tell you this. It's so bad. I don't know right now if I can name one player in the UFL. If
Could you name one team?
The Renegades? Are they still a team?
Okay, let me rephrase that. Can you name a city?
Birmingham.
Oh, well, how about that? The
sure.
Birmingham Stallions. There are the Renegades, the Arlington Renegades.
Oh, yeah.
Arlington Renegades, Birmingham Stallions, DC Defenders.
One in Memphis, too.
Houston Roughnecks, Memphis Showboats. Great name, by the way. The Michigan Panthers. Whatever idiot came up with Michigan Panthers should be fired. Where's Dewey? The San Antonio Brahmas and the St. Louis Battlehawks.
What is that? What did you just name? 10, 12? Something like that. That's what I'm saying. There's not I don't know, man. Like
8. There's 8 teams.
8 teams.
Yeah.
It's the UFL, so that's happening right now. Look, I think it has its place. Am I saying it's worthless? No. Okay, go, for example, and look at guys, Diesel, in the last year or two who have been pulled off of UFL teams to go to the NFL teams. You have seen players do that. In fact, my Cowboys have done it and signed guys from the UFL that have actually produced in the NFL. I'm not saying it always is going to happen. Other teams have done it as well.
Didn't they set it up so that 4 teams can pull players off of NFL rosters?
I don't know.
Like, for example, and I'm just making up the 4 teams, the Steelers, Panthers, Seahawks, and Cowboys are all tied to the Memphis Showboats. So those 4 teams can pull players off of the Memphis Showboats.
Sure.
Isn't that how they set that up?
It might have been.
I think I remember them talking about it like that was going to be the way they were going to do it.
Well, here's a good example. I'm not, again, to prove my point that I'm not saying it's worthless. Cavante Turpin, who was in the USFL, I guess that's a different league, right? He was with the New Jersey Generals in 2022. He was the league MVP. He comes to Dallas as a wide receiver / return specialist, Diesel, and last year was named an NFLPA All-Pro kick returner, Pro Bowler. So it does have its place. I just don't think it'll ever have its place in a watchability format. Like, it's never going to compete for ratings or attendance.
They'd have to make it banana ball, basically.
Yeah.
They'd have to really find a way. I mean, play it on these glass courts that you're talking about. Figure out a way to put it on a glass court to make it, like, ultra colorful. Get people who are high on psychedelics like, whoa, I've never seen football this way, bro.
Yeah, they love it.
Madcraft says, Diesel, did you know there's a curling league in the upstate? I did know that, Madcraft. I did know that. And I've always wanted to join it. The problem is all of their meets are on weeknights. We're here. We're here till 7 o'clock.
I don't know if I could do that.
I would love it. I've always wanted
Really?
to try curling. I think it'd be great. It's one of those sports that, like, an old dude can do it, right? So, like, you either get to be the person that goes down on one knee and just slowly releases the stone, or the person who's, like, scrubbing.
I feel like that sucked.
That's a hard
Cole,
job.
You're the scrubber.
That's a tricep workout.
I don't want to be on the team if I'm the scrubber. Come on.
Are they called pitchers and scrubbers?
I don't know.
They should be.
I've maybe have seen curling in the Olympics, and that's
It's fun, dude. I love.
I can't believe there's one in Greenville.
I love like the tabletop shuffleboard. I love that. I love playing. It's tabletop shuffleboard and cornhole on ice.
Yeah.
It's great. I've always wanted to join it. The problem is, they don't start these things at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I couldn't get there.
Do they play at the Bon Secours? I guess they have to, right? Someone plays.
No, there's an ice rink out on Pelham. I think that's where they do it.
Texter says, fan Cole needs to take it easy on the keyboard. All I hear is every day you hammering those keys. Well, if I am going to do a little show research, I've got to hammer the keys, Texter. Does it bother you when you hear this?
It's also because the mic arm won't stay up.
That's true. I could do this, but then you couldn't see me on the stream.
And then if you do that and let go, it just falls
down.
It falls down.
So, Texter, I'll try to mute myself. Now, I do that when we have interviews. I do mute myself like that. But then can you hear me now, Texter? Can you hear me?
Some might say that's better.
They might.
Here's what they need to do. They need to get you a quiet keyboard. This Texter.
This one's quiet.
That one's the white keyboard's quiet. The black one is not.
So I have just so people know, I have 3 keyboards in front of me, literally. And
it's a hard worker.
Yeah, I mean the one that you hear is.
I've done that job, man. It's sitting on that side of the board. You're like left, right, up,
it's
down.
Constant. So I'll try to be more quiet. He says, yeah, it bothers me. It's like my wife chewing. Which one bothers you more? Me on the keyboard or your wife? I do agree with the texter. I cannot stand hearing somebody chew. Oh, God. There's nothing worse, is there? Especially if you're out to eat. Oh, my God.
Man, I was out yesterday getting food on my way here to the station. And I'm sitting next to a table, and I'm not trying to eavesdrop, but when it's a quiet restaurant and the table is literally right next to you, you can't not hear it.
Sure.
Oh, excruciating conversation. Hearing a dude badly explain to his buddy why he should listen to his new favorite podcast, Drama.
Oh, God. You got to stop going to Panera Bread,
I wanted
man.
to throw my food at him.
What have I told you about going to Panera for lunch? You've got to quit going.
I mean, he's trying to. It's like it was like listening to a 5-year-old try to talk to their parents. Like you've listened to a 5-year-old talk before, right? They go down one lane, immediately switch and go over this way, and then they're over there, then they're over there, and like the guy could not put 2 sentences together
to
explain why his new favorite podcast is so good. God, I wanted
should've
to.
listened
I
to
wanted to hit. I wanted to throw my drink at him.
You should have
It was bad.
wrote it down so we could listen, so we could know what the name of the podcast was. Or told him, hey, I host a radio show, loser. I
Madcraft
don't need
says
a podcast.
being the pitcher and the catcher rotates, so you'd eventually have to do
That's
both.
what it's called, as a pitcher and a catcher. Is that really? I mean, I'm being serious.
No, it's not what it's called.
I didn't know. I mean, you could tell me it was called the hat and the. I wouldn't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what these curling. I mean, come on. You want me to follow hockey, curling? I can't do it all.
How many?
Minecraft.
So back to the topic at hand, without getting too far off topic here. How many different kinds of football are there? I mean, like football leagues. You got the NFL, NCAA, and everything involved there. Then you've got the UFL. They want to do a flag football league. You got the hot girls in bikinis football league where they look like they're wearing hockey pads.
And then one shut down, right?
And nobody watches that. Like, when are these guys going to figure out? Like, nobody's watching this. So, I mean, these are super rich dudes who don't really give a rip if the league is successful or not. They're hoping that it's successful because then they can make a little money off of it. Outside of that, they don't care. They don't care. Maybe Michael Strahan does a little bit. But why does Ice Cube, care at all whether or not this league is successful?
Diesel, I am going to, on the other side, give you the easiest bet. If you out there are a Tolo listening and you're looking for the easiest bet you've ever placed in your life, I've got it for you, and I'll tell you what it is next. Diesel, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you and the Tolos in this segment because I saw something during the break that I wanted to get your opinion on, also wanted to get the opinion of the Tolos on, go a little off script from sports for a second before the Tolo takeover, which is, by the way, 15 minutes from right now. Tolos, if you're not a part of the Tolo takeover, you're lame. I'm sorry, but you got to be a part of it. So go ahead and figure out what you want to call about. 15 minutes from right now, the Tolo takeover will be taking place. But I want to go off script here. I saw a debate on Facebook, which is nothing worse than a good old Facebook debate, right? And we know that recently we have seen Table Rock, Diesel, and surrounding areas that were hit pretty hard by the wildfires, right? But they weren't wildfires. They were from a cigarette, from a group of teenagers who just discarded of their cigarette butts wherever they wanted to. I want to bring this debate to the air with the remaining 5 minutes that we have before we go on to the top of the hour break. There is a huge debate on this Facebook post when it comes to the teenagers that were taken into custody because they started this fire. So as you can imagine, half of the people on the post are debating that the teenagers who started the fire should be locked up and, they should face serious punishment. The other half, and I can't believe people are saying this, are saying, look, they're teenagers. It's an honest mistake. You got to show them grace. What are you talking about? There's 13,000 acres that just burned down. It doesn't matter if you commit a crime as a teenager or as an adult. Where do you stand here, Tolos, at 844-FAN-PHONE? Because I stand in, look, it didn't matter how old they are. They discarded of the cigarette butts. People had to leave their homes because of this. I don't care how old they are. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, there's got to be punishment for this, right? There's got to be. Now,
to what extent's the question?
To what extent, right? Do we think that their lives should be ruined from a legal standpoint because of what they did? I don't think so. I mean, that's a little harsh. Yeah. If they're like 18, 19-year-old little, what heads, butt heads, and they're like, let's just chuck it. But if it's just a kid smoking a cigarette and he drops it on the ground and it sparks a fire, that is a mistake. Now, did they make any efforts to come out and say, sorry guys, it was us. We were there. We're really sorry. But think about it this way. When you were a teenager and you made a mistake, I mean, none of us burned down 13,000 acres.
Right, but we all made mistakes.
But we all made mistakes. When you're a teenager, you got no concept for, hey, I should go turn myself in. I should face the consequences. You all try to run and hide and hope you get away with it. Right? That's what we all do, or that's what we all did. When we didn't want to get in trouble.
So I think I'm with you. I think I agree with what you said. It's a matter for me of to what extent should they be punished. Now, that's where you start having the conversation. Texter says, didn't they change the law to be 21 to buy cigarettes, punish them and whoever bought them for them? I don't know. I should know that. I unfortunately don't know. It's been a while since I've been 21. Not that long, not as long as Diesel. Texter says, do the crime, do the time. There needs to be some punishment. That comes from JT and Greer. I mean, it
is 21, by the way.
It is 21.
It is a federal tobacco 21 law.
So you got to be 21 to buy cigarettes. So, again, if they were downtown Greenville and threw some, cigarettes out and it caught, the little bushes right there on fire, right in front of the chicken salad, be one thing. Slap on the wrist, probably let them go. However, I guess the magnitude of what happened is different.
Trying to think the right way to say this without getting myself in trouble. I have accidentally started a brush fire or two in my day that I didn't intend to start.
Right.
I have accidentally started a fire. Two fires, as a matter of fact. One was in my very own backyard. And
I wish I was there for that. I really
so, have you seen the video that I think it happened down in Somerville, where a couple weeks ago a guy
You said it
was
too.
yeah he
It
was
was Tom, right?
it was Tom. He was edging his driveway, and a spark from his edger went into the grass and just whoosh, because it was dry Bermuda grass from last year. It went up like that.
It was kind of fun.
And I did that not with an edger, but like I was testing out a charcoal chimney to put coals into a smoker.
Yeah.
And I accidentally dropped a cinder out of it, and then like before you even to notice, like a circle the size of a swimming pool and your yard's on fire, like holy, you know what? Like I didn't even know it was happening. That's the crazy thing. Like I picked this thing up.
Yeah.
I did it in a place where I thought it would be safe. I pick it up. I walk it across the yard. Without me knowing, a cinder falls, catches on fire. My wife's upstairs like banging on the window. She's like, there's a fire. I was like, yeah, it's really hot out here. No, she's like, no, there's a fire. And so I have to hurry up and grab the water hose. Another time, Cole, I was filming a very, very, very terrible YouTube video where I bought a new computer, so I went to the fireworks stand and bought a ton of fireworks, and I packed them into this computer case, and then I lit them off, and it was great, right? Boom, 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 boom. One of them just so happened to go boom and fly in a direction I did not intend for it to fly, and it caught some brush on fire. Luckily, I was able to hurry up real quick and get a fire extinguisher and put it out, but point is, I didn't intend for it to happen, right? So, like, mistakes happen.
Mistakes do happen.
Mistakes happen.
Hurricane Jeff says, I don't think jail time is warranted, but maybe get them to do a ton of community service.
Probation for like forever. You know, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I do think community service would be something.
Make them work for the Parks Department or whatever for a summer. I don't know.
Make them work in radio. Right?
That's cruel. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Let's make them watch every single Atlanta Braves game all season long. When we come back, Tolos, it's your opportunity to call us at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663, and take over the Fan Upstate airwaves. It is not only your privilege, but it's also our challenge to you. You got something to say about anything? Call us. That's next. Tolos, have you ever wanted to hear your voice on the radio? Do you think you're smarter than everybody else? Well, come be a host on the show. Like, for real. Tomorrow, at least. Cole's gonna need you here.
Diesel's leaving me.
I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
About. Diesel's leaving me.
But think about today, this segment right here, right now, as auditions to be a sports talk radio host. You got something to say? Call us at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. We love it when you text in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, but we want you to call here on this segment. We do it every single Thursday. It is the Tolo Takeover. If you've got a complaint, if you want to congratulate somebody on something, if you got a gripe or a grumble, call now.
I also think, Diesel, we might need to start giving incentive. And what I mean is, like, for example, we have a few good callers who call every week, and then every now and then we have one sprinkled in that's new that hasn't called in before. But, you know, like, the regulars have good calls. Tom and somebody who always has a funny call. Rick and Greer, JD, whoever always has a good call. Maybe we take it one step forward and give them points and really see, like, if Tom 2 weeks in a row can have the best call on the Tolo Takeover, if JD can have a better call, and then maybe the Tolos can also, for those that don't want to call, they can vote on how good the call was and maybe give incentive to, number one, get more calls, and then number two, the calls that you bring, you better bring it. Because
We just need you to man up.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone and call. A lot of people listen to the show. And what was the number you gave, Cole?
2%.
Like only 2% of listeners actually interact with the show. Yep. They call in and text in. We're going to need you to step that up. Those are rookie numbers. 4, 5,
get those numbers up.
10%. Can we get 10% of our upstate Tolos? Those of you in Greenville, Spartanburg, TR, Simpsonville, all of you, all over the upstate. Boiling Springs, we need you calling in. And to get us going, batting leadoff, don't know what kind of substances might be in his system right now, but definitely not going to cost us 80 games. We go to the phone lines and bring on JD, who's got something to say. Batting leadoff, JD, what do you got?
Hey, so first of all, let me ask this. Have you guys talked about Ja Morant yet at all?
No, but it is on our daily wires.
Okay, cool. Well, let me just say this. I'm going to applaud him for not brandishing a real weapon for once. But I'm also going to ask at the same time, are you stupid or something, dude? What in your right mind makes you think that it's okay to point a shotgun at the Warriors bench and pretend like you're firing a gun at them? Given your history, you're lucky that the NBA only gave you a warning. You should have been suspended for a few games again, in my opinion.
Dead on, JD. The guy's an idiot. He'll never learn. They got to kick him out of the league. I understand that he's an up-and-coming star, but at this point, like, he's not going to be an elite top 5 level talent in the NBA. So if you lose him, what are you really losing?
I don't know about that. I think he might be.
Top 5 level talent?
Yeah, I think
he's a top 5 level dumbass in the NBA. Well, that's also true.
That might be, too. That might be. I mean, I agree with you, JD. There's nobody can excuse stupid. And you know what? If it was something else, if it was another jester, okay. But my God, he's already had these gun jesters before, so I'm with you there.
Right. I would have rather him just give him the double bird. I think he would have gotten away with that much easier than pointing a shotgun at him. And then last thing I'll say, apparently I got a message this morning from Brandon in Spartanburg. So Brandon in Spartanburg, if you're listening, he wants me and Dewey to fight. So I'll say it one more time. Shut up, Dewey.
I tell you what, JD, he hung up on it. I was going to put them on the phone together because
Dewey's
guess
next.
who's on the phone line next?
What's up, Dewey?
Dewey?
Yes, I was going to actually say something nice about JD, but you suck. But I do agree with you about Ja Morant. He's a petulant child. He should be kicked out of the NBA for his behavior.
Well, thanks for the call, Dewey. Before we let you go, any Braves conversation?
No, I think we said all we're going to say about the Braves, but my complaint today is it's pretty simple. When you go get an oil change, I want to go and pay for an oil change.
Oh.
That's it. I don't want to hear about I got tire issues or my brakes I just replaced 2 weeks ago are bad, or yeah, my tire, but your tire's low, even though I just bought a tire yesterday, or something else is wrong. I came to pay for an oil change that cost $70, not to pay $600. Jiffy
God.
Lube and all you other places, y'all suck, and y'all need to quit ripping people off. Oh.
That's a really good one, though, by the way, because that is annoying.
They're all trying to increase their services and get more money out of you.
I did fall for it. My last oil change, he showed me the air filter in the car that's now totaled, right? And it was pretty dirty. It'd been a while since I got a new air filter.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, well, let me see what a new one looks like. So he unboxed a new air filter, diesel, and held up my air filter beside the new one.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let's go ahead and get a new air filter because, they say it makes a difference. I know it does, maybe help your gas mileage a little bit. But I understand Dewey's frustration there.
Yeah,
It's frustrating.
Aren't this is all like routine maintenance. You're supposed to do all of these things. And a lot of people will just ignore
They do.
all
They
the
do.
things going wrong with their car.
But
You just don't want to pay
Right,
for
that's
it
right.
now
Yeah, that's right.
today.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. You cheapskates
Yep.
riding around in hoopties. It's your fault. The roads are the way that the roads are.
Let me ask you
Get
this.
your turn signals fixed. Actually use them. How many people do I have to see in the state of South Carolina with one headlight out? Come on.
Yeah, I've been there.
Fix it. It's not that expensive, and it's not that hard.
No, I did. If I can do it, you can do it. Lefty Tiger says the last time I called in, I was off all day and got heavy in the happy juice and got hung up on. Well, Lefty Tiger, I don't remember that. Maybe that was pre-us, but let's do this. Let's give it another shot. Let's give it another shot, Lefty Tiger. Whatever you want to rant about, whatever you want to take over these airwaves about. Texter says you can get an air filter for like $15 and they're super easy to install. But yeah, then you've got to install it and you might mess it up.
Not me. I'd buy it and it would sit in the box on my passenger
that's
side
fair too,
floorboard for like 3 months, and then I would finally change
Right.
it.
So that's what I'm saying. You better just go ahead and get them to do it,
Yeah.
right?
It's a service. Like a lot of these oil change places, you just get to sit in your car while they do it now. You don't have to get out of your car.
No, you don't.
Like, isn't it nice? Isn't it worth it to pay a couple extra bucks to let some other grease monkey do it for you?
And they're quick too. The last time I got my oil changed, it was no time.
Yeah.
It was really fast.
It's amazing.
By the way, Tolos, let's keep going up those numbers and continue to hit the phone lines up. We've got like 4 open spots at 844-FAN-PHONE. Before we go to Tom in Somerville, I want to ask on the Tolo takeover, what would be, I don't know how to do this. So right now I'm in a rental, right? Because of the last Wednesday, I'm in a rental. I'm in a new Mitsubishi. I'm in a new one, diesel, and it had 2,000 miles on it when I got the rental.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. How do I keep a rental? That's what I want to ask on the Tolo takeover because I have.
How do you ask them if you could buy it from them?
I don't want to do that. I just want to keep driving it and never take it back.
But it's new. Like,
I don't ever want to take it back. I want them to lose my number and forget it happened. That's what I want. I want them to just forget, oh, yeah, we leased that car or rented that car out to that guy. The insurance company's paying for it, not me. But I want to keep it. It's been a while since I've sat and drove a brand new car.
It's nice. You forget how nice it is.
And that's the bad part. You drive these brand new cars, and all of a sudden you start thinking, "Oh man, I'd like me a brand new." You know what I mean? You don't need a brand new car.
The average car payment now is like $600 a month.
Ridiculous. Which is ridiculous. I would never do that. And again, I know there are probably a lot of people out there who pay that.
Average new vehicle payment in America is $742 a month.
Car payments.
That's ludicrous.
And not to get on a tangent here, car payments are what keep people from building wealth.
Yeah.
It's a fact. I mean, at $650 a month for a car.
$742 for a used car. $525 is the average for a used car. So yeah, right around $650.
That is
crazy.
ridiculous.
Who's agreeing to pay for this?
Well, you know what they do. You mean tell you why it happens. The biggest problem with people buying new cars is not that they don't. Let me rephrase this. The biggest problem is people don't know how to go into a car dealership and buy a car. Mm-hmm. All they care about is their monthly income, what they think they can afford. They go in, they tell the guy, hey, yeah, if we can get it below, $600 a month, okay, how's $589? Well, that's good. It's below $600. Well, guess what? That person brings home $3,000 a month, so they think, okay, I can afford it. No, you can't afford a six. That is, I know there are probably people out there who have high car payments, but that I couldn't do it. I could not stomach paying a payment of $600 a month.
Yeah, and then some people will stretch it out to like 7, 8 years to pay for their car, just to get their car payment down.
Sure.
And then 8 years from now, you're still paying $600 a month for an 8-year-old car.
And the interest. Don't even get me started.
It sucks, man.
Don't even get me started on the interest. Let's go to Summerville, South Carolina, where Tom wants to join the Tolo takeover. And while Tom's on the air, Tolos, let's get a few more of you lined up in queue. Again, the number is 844-326-3663. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. All I'm saying is I went to bed last night when the Atlanta Braves were up 5-0. I was so happy. I said, the Braves are back. Well, then I woke up and saw what actually happened. Well, and Madcraft the other day, he got on everybody about being negative.
Yeah, he did.
Well, we've been positive, and since we've been positive, they've done nothing but lose. So I don't know what the mindset needs to be now. I mean, they were able to score 5 runs. That's positive.
Jurickson Profar was positive, Tom.
What's that?
Jurickson Profar was positive.
Just the wrong kind of positive.
Right.
But, the offense started out pretty good last night, and next thing you know, the bullpen had to come into the game. And I'm just glad I was asleep, because if I would have been awake to see Shohei Ohtani hit that walk-off home run, I probably would have been forced to sleep outside this weekend. My wife probably would have kicked me out of the house.
Tom, can you give me an example? 1 example, 2 examples, whatever, of things you would rather do than throw to Shohei Ohtani in a tie ball game in the bottom of the 9th?
Probably put my I'll just say my walnuts in a cheese grater.
God.
Let's go with that.
Let me ask you this, Tom. And I wasn't awake for it either. I woke up this morning and saw it. Tell me again, we're talking about putting blame on somebody. Was there one out? I think the Dodger pitcher, or one of the Dodger players struck out, and then Shohei came up. Is that right?
I think there was one out. I think so. Here's my thing.
But don't you put him on base, though, with one out?
Exactly, because here's the thing. If you're going to lose, you're going to lose no matter what. So, but if I'm making a decision, I'm not letting the best baseball player in the world determine the outcome of the game.
Yep.
If someone else beats you, which the Dodgers might be the second or third best baseball player in the world, at least let one of them do it. But don't give the opportunity to the best player in the world to beat you. It's just, it's like telling a little fat kid when they go to the candy store not to eat every piece of candy in the store. The only way to eliminate it is just don't take them to the candy store. And it's just the writing was on the wall.
At least you can say, Tom, it took the best player in baseball to beat you last night.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
That's one way to spin this BS.
That's the positive outlook for Madcraft. The best player in baseball beat the Atlanta Braves.
Hey, Tom, Dewey on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, tell Tom that Dewey says he should consider watching the Gamecocks softball team. They're actually good and just don't – they are actually good, just don't get in trouble with the wife, says Dewey.
Hey, that's a good – I did see they won a bunch of games. I hadn't watched
They're good.
it yet, but
They're good.
I might have to.
Yeah.
Y'all want to have a cookout and watch some softball? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Hey, that might be the best program on campus right now.
Yeah.
Second best behind the ladies' the basketball team.
Nah, Beamer still got that on lock.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks,
we
Tom.
appreciate you.
Y'all have a good one.
And, boy, did Tom spur up a little momentum there, Diesel, because as soon as Tom started going in on Madcraft, who did tell us to be positive and the
Gotta
Braves will win
defend
games. Just like that, Madcraft got on the phone lines, as you should do, Tolos, at 844-FAN-PHONE, and he wants to chime in on the Tolo takeover. What's up, Madcraft?
Number one, thank you for taking my call. Number two, how come I didn't get the same opportunity to go hand in hand and talk to Tom straight face to face? I'm just messing with you. Listen, I got a question for you. Tom already admitted it. Were you watching? Did you watch that game?
I watched it until I fell asleep.
Until you fell asleep, so you didn't watch it. So you weren't watching until the end.
No, not till the end.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, let me put it to you this way then. Let's do a hypothetical then. Let's say that you were, and you were sitting there watching that bottom of the ninth, and you knew that our pitcher, I believe it was Iglesias?
Iglesias.
It was Iglesias, who, by the way, pitched very well for us last year and pitched very well against the Dodgers for us last year. Would like to point that out. So just anyways, you would have seen that and put 0% chance on us to have any kind of success in that situation, because what my point being is that the Dodgers, if you think about this for a second, the likelihood, and I know that he's the best player in the world. Well, we all know that. But if you think about this for a second, what is the likelihood of you, one, hitting a walk-off home run, right? Two, doing it on the night that they gave away your MVP bobblehead.
Did you just ask what are the odds that Shohei Ohtani, the best player on the planet, would hit a wall? I don't know.
Madcraft, you're gonna kick up a tornado in the upstate with all that spin, my friend.
No, hold on a minute now. Think about this. Ask yourself, what is the likelihood of a game ending with a walk-off home run?
On bobblehead night.
And then think about it. Add on the fact that this person also had their MVP bobblehead giveaway from the previous season. It happened that night.
So you're calling conspiracy. Are you saying it was a conspiracy to give him a walk-off homer?
No, what I'm saying is that there is a correlation with the fact that everybody in that stadium absolutely had a feeling that they were probably going to come out successful on that, because they had their back. What I'm saying is that y'all have a 0% chance. What you're doing is you're kicking a dog while it's down. But what I'm going to tell you is that as soon as this dog gets back up, it's going to hunt.
Let me ask you this question, Madcraft.
Y'all can't talk no baseball no more.
Very simple question for you. If you're leaned up inside the dugout last night and you're Brian Snitker, are you pitching to Shohei Ohtani?
Well, let me ask you this.
I'm going to start calling you a Dodger. That's all you do is dodge questions.
How many outs were there?
I think there was one.
There was one out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so what's your plan? What's your plan there? You
put him on freaking base. That's the plan. He's the best player on planet Earth.
And then go to who?
The Mookie Betts.
Mookie Betts?
Yeah.
Hey, walk two bases if you have to.
Hold on. Is there any difference between them two as far as where they bat?
Mookie Betts was 0 for 4 last night, Madcraft.
Doesn't matter.
My God.
He's going you obviously don't know ball now.
No, I don't know. Here we go. 0 and 4.
Now we're talking some serious business.
Mookie Betts was 0 and 4. So you'd rather pitch to Ohtani.
In that situation, he made a decision. Look, you can't sit here and tell me that Brian Sittner he's not perfect. But goodness gracious, you can't sit here and just go, well, no, that's the exact reason. That's it. No, it's not. He made a decision. It was a decision that was fine to me. You pitched to whoever you wanted to pitch to. He liked the way that they were. He liked Ohtani on his side of the plate, and I'm good with it. It was fine.
Have to agree to disagree.
He took a pitch that honestly Iglesias left right there. He left it right there. Ohtani took one swing. It was one look. You know what I'm saying? It was literally a magical moment.
Madcraft's going to have to run to – let's get Jimmy on. Thanks for the call. Let's get Jimmy before we run to a break. Jimmy wants to join the Tolo takeover. What's up, Jimmy?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, first-time caller.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy.
It's great to hear you guys talking about baseball. It sucks that it's the Braves are what we're talking about. But man, some of you guys are 35 years old and you're letting it show because you don't remember the glory days of the 1980s Braves on Superstation WTBS with Bob Horner and Dale Murphy in the dugout, the only light on the team at all.
Well, I wasn't alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
You've
was
been
6 when the
spoiled by
80s
last
ended.
30 years of Braves doing pretty good. And, man, it's just reminding me of those days watching at 7:05 and 7:35. Man, did they suck.
They suck. And they suck now, Jimmy.
Oh, they do. But, we still – you got to have something to believe in, and why not the Braves?
All right, let's do it.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for the
Jimmy.
call, man. Good call. I
Call
like
us
it.
back anytime.
I like it. That's good stuff. Good Braves conversation. Hey, at least maybe it's better that they suck.
You got to have the downs to appreciate the ups.
And maybe
just wait till the one day that the Dallas Cowboys do something good and how good that's going to feel.
Oh, it'll feel great, but it never happened. I'm just saying maybe it's better that for us that the Braves do suck because it makes for more entertaining radio, right? I'll tell you what's going to be entertaining. Coming up next, we're going to ask a baseball coach right here in the upstate what it was like to play the first ever game at Fifth Third Park on Tuesday night. The head baseball coach of the Wofford Terriers, J.J. Edwards, joins us next. Let's talk a little baseball, some positivity, not the Atlanta Braves like we just talked about for the last 20 minutes. Let's turn it positive as we bring in our next guest, J.J. Edwards. He is the head baseball coach of the Wofford Terriers. And if you were in Spartanburg, you saw Wofford on Tuesday night get the win at Fifth Third Park over USC Upstate. Coach, always appreciate you taking time to hop on with us. This is Cole Diesel across the way. We'll get to you in a second. But I want to ask you, Coach, what do you think one day when you look back and think about getting the first ever win at a new ballpark in Spartanburg, what do you think that'll do to you, do for the team, and for the program of Wofford to be able to look back one day and say, hey, we were the first team ever to win at that stadium?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. It was awesome. The atmosphere was awesome, and my pregame talks normally don't go to like, hey, enjoy the moment and enjoy the atmosphere and the time at the stadium. But I ended up having to go down that route, and I was glad I did because we played in front of big stadiums. We played in the SEC a couple times, and I've been here long enough. But that was one of the more cool, exciting, and then like loud atmospheres I've ever been in. And I just think it's part of the stadium and the culture that's happening in Spartanburg. But it's something to tell your family for the rest of your life for sure.
Coach, it's Diesel here. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. Talk about your players as they made their way into Fifth Third Park, down into the locker room area, getting to see this brand new ballpark. Were they wide-eyed little kids all over again, thinking how special this was?
Oh yeah. Because the thing is I've been this whole between Upstate and us playing has been in the process since like early September of opening up this park. So I've been in there from the start. So I've gotten a tour and they're giving me pictures and they're giving me all these updates, but the guys have not. So I'm like assuming, I was like, remember this? And they're like, no, Coach, we've never been. And they're walking in and it is. And and everything they did was done extremely well and thought out. And because we play in a lot of minor league stadiums, conference tournaments, other teams, everything, like you're everywhere. But you just look at it, and every stadium you go into, you kind of get the nitpicking of, well, you should do that, and that's not in a great spot, and where's that? But you walk in a Fifth Third, and you're just sitting there going, they thought of everything. They thought of it the right way, and they made it right and did it correctly the whole time.
We're joined by J.J. Edwards, the head baseball coach at Wofford. Second season as head coach, been on the staff since 2011. Coach, I was there Tuesday night, and I was talking to, as you can imagine, a new ballpark. It's hard to actually focus on the game sometimes because of all the people. But later in the game, I just kind of started thinking, man, this is really, really cool for the city. I'm from Spartanburg and never thought that I would see baseball back. What do you think for the future with the stadium there, you and Upstate and other colleges in the area? What do you think it'll do for the community and y'all's involvement with that stadium as well?
Oh, yeah, and we are fortunate enough because the assistant GM is a former Wofford player, so we are kind of like on the inside of it. But we've had conversations for multiple games next year and multiple games the following year. But I just think it's going to be a great atmosphere because you're going to attract more outside talent, as in other teams, to come and play you. Because we played, and I had 3 schools reach out to me and go, hey, when we play you next year, can we do it at the minor league park? Can we play at that minor league park? And I was like, yeah, like we got to check dates, and Upstate's going to get some games in there too. But like that is what is the stir going on. And the funny thing is we played, and then we practice on Wednesday, and I'm talking to the guys. I go, hey, what do you got tonight? What are you doing? And they're like, I might sneak over there and watch the exhibition game of Hickory versus Spartanburg. And I'm like, holy cow, like this is really taking off. And that's what you want, right? Like people talking baseball because, our seasons really don't conflict that much. They don't start until February. We're pretty much on the last 20% of our season at that point. So it's just a good relationship that can coexist. And it's just baseball in Spartanburg. And that's what I think that's what everybody's shooting for.
Talking to J.J. Edwards, Wofford's head baseball coach, as we were there doing our tour of the facility a little over a week ago, we were talking to the head grounds crew guy, and he was talking about that kind of odd left field home run line where it was going to track up the pole and then angle down and to the right, go flat level for a little while, then jump back up. So he was just talking about how odd that line is going to be. What, as somebody who's been around the game for quite a while, what's the quirkiest ground rule that you think you've encountered in your time playing or coaching?
Yeah, God, what a loaded question. When we played coaching is in Sherrill, New York, and it was a park that their claim is Babe Ruth played there. That if you hit a home run to right field, it was only 220 feet, so they counted it as a double and not as a home run. That was probably one of the weird.
No way.
Yeah. It was wild. Sherrill, New York. I think it's like the Silversmiths play there. I think they're in the NYCBL, and that you show up and it's just this park in the middle of town. It's a small town, and they're like, Babe Ruth played here, and you're showing up, and now it's 415 feet to center field. But you can legit hit a home run into somebody's porch that they would count as a double because of right field was so short.
Coach, you guys have had a great start to the season, 21-9, hosting Samford this weekend in Spartanburg at Russell C. King Field on the campus of Wofford. You're coming off of a SoCon championship in the tournament over in Greenville a season ago. What, in your mind, has made this team so special, and how hard is it to replicate the success of last season?
Yeah. I think what makes this team special is they realize they're not last year's team. Last year's team, when I'm interviewing after we won it, and, it's one of those things, you just walk in and you go, why are you guys so good? And I go, well, our infield has had 625 college starts between our third baseman, shortstop, and second baseman. I go, there's not that much coaching I need to do with those guys. It's more keeping their minds in the right spot and going everything. This year, we are first-year starter at third, first-year starter at second, first-year starter at short, first-year starter in left, first-year starter in center, and then returner in right. So it is just a completely different mindset and way to go about it. So what makes this team great is they know that, and they are just retaining information, because my point to them always is, hey, we're young and we're inexperienced. That is fine. When we make a mistake, learn from your mistake and don't do it again. We need to learn and move on. And that's why I feel like we're playing well, because I'm having these conversations one time and not six times.
Coach, we've had the pleasure here on the show to talk to a lot of different head coaches in the area. Landon Powell up at North Greenville, Eric Bakich, Paul Maneri, and we talked to a lot of them about the transfer portal and the difficulty of keeping guys on roster year over year, and how that consistency is a key. For you, what's the process for you if a player comes to you and says, Coach, I've had a great time here, but I think I want to test my skills somewhere else. How do you try to guide them, and what's your pitch to try to keep a guy on board and here in Spartanburg?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's unfortunately I've had too many of those conversations, but my pitch of staying is not one. It is. I think if somebody decides they want to leave, it's just tough to sit there. And I don't want to have to coach them differently than anybody else, because all of a sudden they might jump ship. So my thing is either you're all in or you're all out. And the good thing about the portal for Wofford College is we don't have grad school. We can't get anybody in after their sophomore year because of our academic standards, which is a great selling point, because you're going to go get high school guys that are maybe getting passed up on because the big guys aren't going to take high school guys anymore. So we're just getting young guys, and our whole thing is we're just going to coach you at a very, very high level and get you caught up. And if that means we coach you and then you think you need to leave, fine, we'll just kind of reload and replace. But we lost arguably three of our better players this offseason because they said the same thing. And we're doing as well as we did last year just because we want guys who want to be here, that want to get pushed, that want to get coached hard, and we'll just kind of keep reloading and recoaching.
Coach, what do you think you don't have to just name one, but the main things that you learned from Todd Interdonato, who was at Wofford, obviously for a good while before you took over, now at Boston College, has had a tough start to ACC play with Florida State and North Carolina back-to-back. But what do you think are the main things when you look back and the success that y'all had, the success that you're having now, that you would credit learning from him?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing Todd taught me was have an identity of what you want within your program, and then just coach as much as you can to that identity. So, and fortunately for me, like we agreed on a lot of baseball things, but Todd's big thing was like, hey, we're going to be different. Wofford's going to be different. Wofford's a different school. It's high academic. It's not the run-of-the-mill school. I go, so the baseball needs to be different. If you're just trying to show up and out-talent players, it's not going to happen at Wofford College. You need to create what your niche needs to be, and then you need to recruit to it and then coach it at a high level. And that is what we kind of do here is we run a little different style than most. And Coach Ayers was our football coach forever, and that's what made him great is he ran the triple option. So when you came into town, it was a different option. It was a different offense. You had a game plan for a different offense. And I think we do the same thing in a baseball mindset and a baseball terminologies. We run a little bit different of an offense than most, and you have to game plan it for it a little bit differently than most.
Coach, I'm going to ask you another loaded question. Sorry about this. Now that we're just a little over halfway into this season, who has been your most improved player on your team this year?
Oh, it's not. We were actually just having this conversation about it's James Lehman, and it's not even close. James he is from Bluffton, South Carolina, went to May River High School, and he redshirted his freshman year because he was coming off an injury and he wasn't that good. And then last year, I think he had 4 at-bats and no hits and was borderline not making the roster last year at all. And now this year, I think he's hitting .398 and hitting 5-hole for us and plays pretty much every single day. And we have a lot of players come up and go, is this the biggest jump you've ever seen in your life? And I go, it's up there. It's up there, but James never stopped working. And that's what made James is he wanted to be good. He wanted to be at Wofford. He wanted to play the style. And then he goes to summer ball and he maximizes what he does in summer ball for the last 2 years. And he comes back and there's an opening and he's playing really, really hard and really, really well.
Coach, my last question for you. We cover a lot of local high school here in the upstate. What's you talked about culture. What's your philosophy with recruiting not only the state, but those in your backyard as well?
Yeah, so when I first got here, we struggled at a very high rate of landing kids in the state of South Carolina that were high-level players. We got a lot of kids that, hey, I like Wofford, I'm really academic, but we weren't landing like good players that fit the Wofford mold. And over the last 5 years, I feel like we have done a phenomenal job of getting local players and keeping local players and making sure they buy in. And our first one ever was Jack Renwick, the local Dorman kid who just graduated, who's going to be a Hall of Famer at Wofford and probably a Dorman Hall of Famer and everything in between. But I remember when we landed him, that kind of got it going, that people saw him like, wow, that kid's, the number 1 ranked shortstop at the state of South Carolina, and he's going to Wofford. And I think that's kind of started turning it. And then you win more games, and now high school recruiting is becoming less and less, but not for us because we don't have grad school. So I think it's just kind of that perfect storm of we started landing some guys, had some success, and now we're more high school than most.
Coach, my last question for you here, and we had a listener in our last segment argue with us on this topic, but we need a high-level baseball mind to give his opinion on this. If you're Brian Snitker, are you throwing to Shohei Ohtani, 1 out, tie game, bottom of the 9th with Mookie Betts on deck?
Probably, but I think that stuff all comes down to ego. Like, is your ego going to walk away and saying, hey, like, are we just going to pass on this guy altogether? But I don't know, because we were talking about those guys today, and I go, yeah, you have 2 Hall of Famers. Like, pick which one you want to go to.
Right, and that's the hard part.
Now you're just looking at analytics and going like, okay, one's hitting 370, the other one's hitting 355. You're like, okay, go at the guy hitting 355.
Coach, we hate to say it, but you took the side of our listener, so he'll be happy to hear that. We always appreciate you. Fantastic stuff this week over at Fifth Third. Congratulations on a great start of the season, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely. That's Coach J.J. Edwards. And if he doesn't coach baseball forever, he might have a backup career in radio. I mean,
yeah, fantastic, high energy guy, and it's no shocker that this Wofford baseball program is playing at a high level under him. And man, that's exciting to hear that you got more games in the future next season, especially with Wofford, USC Upstate playing against each other, playing against their own opponents in Fifth Third Park.
Isn't that funny about the other coaches texting them? Yeah. Like, hey, can we play next year? That's funny, man. But you know what? He's right. It's a good problem to have. It really is.
It is. When we come back, Cole, let's take our whip around the sports world, see what else is happening out there in our segment called Daily Wires. we've talked Braves, we've talked curling, we've talked flag football today. But what else is happening out there? These are our Daily Wires. The buzz happening in the sports world. The Chicago Bears Stadium project in Arlington Heights is gaining momentum once again. After a period of uncertainty, the Arlington International Racecourse site is an attractive site for a new stadium, but there are some key issues. They're planning on building a state-of-the-art stadium in suburban Chicago. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Moving from an iconic location like Soldier Field out into the burbs.
Soldier Field is iconic. I just don't know what it is with the bad teams wanting to up and move. Them and the Browns. I mean, we've talked about it recently within the last couple of months with the Browns stadium proposal, right, of their multi-billion-dollar stadium. And I remember Buckeye Mike had several comments on that. And that's tough because I think Soldier Field's kind of iconic. I mean, they're not any good, but when I think of, NFL stadiums, Soldier Field's it's a cool one, man. Not literally cool, but it's a neat stadium.
That's like getting in 10 car wrecks and saying, let me buy a new car because it'll make me a better driver.
Yeah.
Mary Kate Cornett, the Ole Miss freshman, who was the subject of a rumor shared by the Pat McAfee show, said that she is now suing Pat McAfee and ESPN for defamation. We started the show with this today, Cole. This is a big deal, and her attorneys, I think, probably have a pretty solid case. I don't know if they'll get money out of this situation, but certainly a big-time slap on the wrist for Pat McAfee. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think it's a fireable offense to the degree of damage that he caused for Mary Kate. Look, I know you might say, Cole, it's not fireable. He was just reporting on something. But, I don't know if Pat has a producer or Pat chooses what he wants to report on. I just think that at some point, if your producer hands you a couple of sheets of paper and has some, topics of conversation, some point I thought Pat McAfee might say, you know what, it might be best, like Adam Schefter did, if we just stay away from that until we know more. But he didn't, and now he has made the bed that he's laying in, right?
Yep, it's a tough situation for Pat, and I like you said earlier, I would appreciate Pat if he would come out and say, you know what, I screwed up. Yep. I talked about something without having the adequate amount of information. I didn't accuse her of anything, but it was certainly insensitive considering the backlash that came after that. And as well as I do, Cole, the internet is a dark and cruel and scary place, and the kinds of things that people will say to complete strangers when all they did was read one tweet about it, made the assumption, got her phone number and her email addresses and got her picture and just they say awful things about people.
They do. It's bad.
The internet's bad.
It's bad.
Memphis Grizzlies guard Ja Morant and Golden State Warriors guard Buddy Hield were both issued warnings for mimicking shooting a gun during Tuesday night's game. Sources say that the NBA has ruled out that the celebrations were intended to be violent in nature, but definitely called them inappropriate. Both teams were issued warnings. Ja has been suspended twice for gun-related incidents, including brandishing weapons on Instagram video streams.
I thought that Ja was past this with the guns. There are literally hundreds of other gestures, bad and good, that he could have made. That I just, like, my whole thing with Ja is, Diesel, do you not just think about these things? Like, dude, you've already gone through this. Don't make a gun gesture. Do the old DMX,
Do the DDP.
Something. But to go back to the guns for Ja, it's like, dude, is this guy ever going to get it?
It puts you in a situation where you say, once a thug, always a thug, and that's who this guy is. Right?
Sad.
I mean, he clearly doesn't learn. If he's not a thug, he's an idiot.
Right.
Which would you rather be known as? Dallas Cowboys' search for a backup quarterback has come to fruition as they have landed Joe Milton III from the New England Patriots. The Cowboys have set a trade with them. The Cowboys will get Milton and a 2025 7th-round pick, number 217 overall, from the Patriots, and the Patriots will get a 2025 5th-round pick. Your thoughts on adding Joe Milton to back up Dak?
Well, you can't say we aren't active in free agency anymore. I mean, we just went out and got a backup quarterback from Tennessee.
A 6th-round pick, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, what he played. I think he was at Michigan before he was at Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's not a bad quarterback. He just never panned out with New England.
At least you're drafting a quarterback who has roughly the same body type and maybe playing style as Dak. So there's no drop off. Well, their skills drop off. You're not going to ask somebody who doesn't know how to do what Dak can do to go out and play. So Tulane quarterback TJ Finley has been suspended following an arrest Wednesday in New Orleans on a charge of illegal possession of stolen items worth more than $25,000. Finley was booked and released. Tulane said in a statement that the length of the suspension will depend on the outcome of his case.
Tulane is not known for football, right? I mean, I guess
they've gotten pretty good over the last few years.
Nothing else to do in New Orleans.
Yeah, nothing else to do in New Orleans. Go downtown, get yourself some beignets instead of rolling around with $25,000 in stolen goods. This is a sad story. Cold carbon monoxide poisoning was ruled the cause of death of Miller Gardner, the teenage son of former Yankees outfielder Brett Gardner. Yeah. Randall Zuniga, the director of Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Agency, said that Miller was tested for carboxyhemoglobin, a compound generated when carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin in the blood. When the saturation point exceeds 50%, it's considered lethal. In Gardner's case, the test showed a saturation of 64% in his blood. This guy said it's important to note that adjacent to his room is a dedicated machine room where it's believed there may be some type of contamination towards those rooms. Such a sad story. And lastly, Cole, to end things off, Ohio State has landed a big-time commitment for the 2026 class of four-star defender Simeon Caldwell. Ryan Day and the Buckeyes now have a pledge from the nation's 34th overall prospect in the 2026 draft. Caldwell is 6'2", 195-pound recruit from Jacksonville, Florida, and the number 4 outside linebacker in the country.
Coming up next, Tolos, a April Fool's joke that indeed was not an April Fool's joke that has been confirmed that is actually happening. We briefly mentioned this the other day. We're going to touch on that and then get into a little Clemson and South Carolina baseball. What does the weekend look like for both programs? Palminary on a one-game winning streak. I shouldn't say that. Gamecocks defeated PC. We'll see if that continues. We'll talk about it next.
It's time for Wire to Wire with friends Diesel and Cole. The best sports show on the radio. Talking Tiger Balls and Rooster Grove. You already know. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole. It's the best sports show on the radio. We're talking Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole.
Still love,
love it.
That theme from Madcraft, who is high on his horse because J.J. Edwards of Wofford agreed with him that you should pitch to Shohei Ohtani instead of a 0-4 Mookie Betts that was hitless on the night. But you know what, Madcraft, if you want to have your win, you can have it because it's a pretty good theme song you gave us.
Who was on behind Mookie Betts? Could they have intentionally walked two back-to-back players, get around the All-Stars, and go to the scrubs in the lineup?
There's no scrubs. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Like a TLC song. Ain't no scrubs.
Hernandez was behind Betts. He was 0 for 4 as well. Will Smith had one. I mean, again, it's tough because
especially
Shohei's
with one.
best.
If you got two outs, maybe you make that play, but I mean, that's bold.
Yep. JB on the YouTube stream says slamming song Madcraft. I mean, I tell you what, man, we have a lot of good Tolos, but that's the first Tolo that we've had, Diesel, to my knowledge, who has written us and produced a high-quality theme song. I mean, talking about high quality. I'm sure he recorded it on his phone. I don't know. I don't know what he recorded it on, but I give him credit. It's you can understand the words. It's funny. It rhymes, right? And he can play guitar. So watch out, ladies.
I didn't know that about Madcraft.
Watch out. Watch out. Diesel, I was going to be...
He is available, by the way.
Yeah,
I think.
Is he?
I think. I'm not sure.
Hey, we'll dive into Clemson and South Carolina baseball in just a second. But I was going to be very, very disappointed if I found out yesterday or today that the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers were just indeed pulling a big April Fool's joke when it came to the free concessions video. We talked about it the other day on April Fool's Day. I believe it was that Wednesday or Tuesday, I believe, Diesel. And the time has gone by. 2 days have gone by. And there's no, hey, we got you. There's no bringing it back. It seems as if this is legit. Coastal Carolina, in case you missed it, on Tuesday when we talked about it, they're going to be offering free concessions to everybody who buys a ticket, right, into the game. And, Diesel, I had no intentions of going to a Coastal game this year, but I think if App State plays at Coastal this year, you and I should go just to get free concessions.
Absolutely.
Do you know if they do?
I'm gonna look that up here in a second.
Because that'd be fun to see how many free concessions you and I could eat, wouldn't it?
Average attendance in the 2024 season was 21,415. So they're gonna give away unlimited concessions to 21,000 people every game. Now I
That's a lot.
I hope, Cole, that this is not some like bait and switch where it's going to be like just a select handful of concession stands have the free items. People are going to see long lines for free hot dogs and Cokes.
You go buy something?
And they're going to go buy something instead, right? Send them over to the actual high profit margin. Because you and I both know a plain hot dog costs them basically nothing.
It's the cheapest.
It's
one of the cheapest food items.
It's the cheap food items.
But why would there be a long line if all you got to do is end it, exchange it?
I mean, it still takes time. It takes time.
Put them in a big wheelbarrow and just let it be. So in case you missed it, here was the video that Coastal Carolina posted on their socials.
What's up, boss?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What's the damage?
Free.
Free. Well, what about for this?
Free as well.
Free.
All of it free. You want some nachos?
Yeah.
Free too.
All free.
All free.
Free. Can I get 50 of these?
Yeah.
Free.
Free.
What about a drink?
All of it free.
Free.
Have 2 drinks.
Drinks? Ooh.
And
all
a hot
free?
dog. Yeah.
Hot dogs free too?
All free. There you go.
Free.
Free.
Sweet.
That's right, Teal Nation. This fall in Brooks Stadium, every fan, every game, always free. Free concessions, popcorn, nachos, hot dog, fountain drinks, and water for every fan this fall.
So now, Diesel, I want to go to a Coastal game just to see if I could get. I mean, look, it's not healthy for me to say this, and again, I don't know what Coastal's home slate looks like, but I can. I mean, can you imagine you and I at a concession stand with unlimited concessions where nachos?
We never watched the game.
That's
Just stand there the whole time.
I mean, I would love to put it to the test to see how much damage we could do.
So here is Coastal Carolina's home slate this year.
Okay.
Charleston Southern.
Okay. Close in proximity.
Yeah, FCS game, but close. East Carolina's coming to town.
Oh, that's big.
That's going to be a big one.
Game.
That's going to be a big
New
one.
coach, right?
Yep. Then they'll be playing the ULM Warhawks.
Is that Louisiana?
On October
Monroe?
11th. That's correct. Lowest budget in FBS football, by the way.
Oh,
then they will play on Thursday, October 30th, Marshall.
Which
Good
is
game.
It's a good game, yeah.
On Saturday, November 8th, Georgia State.
Your favorite, right?
Yep. And then they will close the season out on Saturday, November 29th at home against James Madison.
Which is a big one.
Which is a big one, too.
So no App State.
They've got, no, App State's on the road this year.
Man.
They will have a solid three really good home games.
Especially if they're
really
good.
ones. Right, yeah. Coastal, Marshall, and East Carolina.
Those
the
are
three
good
really
home
good
games,
home
man.
games.
They are.
And then Charleston Southern, ULM, and Georgia State.
I want to go, man. I want to go just to say I can experience free concessions.
If you're a Georgia State fan, and there's not a ton of them, trust me, I've been to a Georgia State game. There's not a ton, it's not a hard drive from Atlanta over to Conway.
Right.
If only, Cole, the state of South Carolina would grow a pair and build an interstate that goes straight across the state of South Carolina.
Yeah.
Can we get an interstate that goes from Greenville to Myrtle Beach? Can we make that happen? It sucks having to drive down to Columbia and back up.
You can get a
or drive it
helicopter.
up into Charlotte and then come back down. That's not good.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know though. I still might would hit up one of those, maybe the James Madison game, to see just how ungodly sick I could get on free concession. I mean,
well, you can't eat any of it. You wouldn't eat French fries.
No. I would not. I would go off of the diet.
You make an exception.
Oh
for
yeah,
that.
and just gain it all back, right, with nachos and hot. I mean,
It's so funny, Cole. Like I know you're a picky eater. There's a lot of things you
No.
won't eat. We've had a lot of conversations about food on the station.
I'm not a picky eater.
And there's things you won't eat, and then you're like, "Have you tried French fries and Chick-fil-A sauce?"
So good. God, it's so good. Madcraft says over under 12 hot dogs.
Far under. I'm not doing that, man.
No, I'd say Madcraft. I'd say under 2, but I think I could give it a shot.
Like
But when I eat 2, like I ate 2 a couple of weeks ago, I'm not really full. I mean, if you have some fries with it or something, maybe, but I think I could get 6 or 7.
So you're a country fan. What's that Toby Keith song where he says, "I'm not as good as I once
I ain't
was"?
as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
Yeah, I like that, and I've come up with a new one as a man who's now turning 40.
Yeah.
And we have engaged in some physical activities out here. I am not the athlete I once never was.
I like it. I like it. Speaking of liking it, a lot of Clemson fans liking their baseball program right now. 27-5 overall, 6-3 in the ACC. Let's take a look and see what's in store this weekend for both in-state programs. Both teams, by the way, coming off of a win. Clemson coming off of 2 straight wins. South Carolina beat PC, and that's their only straight win they have. This weekend, Diesel, the Clemson Tigers, will start with them because they're good. They are, West Coast Tigers this weekend in Berkeley, California. I don't know if it'll be an adjustment on Friday for Clemson having had to fly across the country. Obviously, they probably did that yesterday or today. But, man, playing on a different coast for a college program, that'll be something to keep an eye on. I'm not saying they won't perform or play as well, Diesel, but when you get college kids on a plane and send them all the way across the country to play Cal, I don't know. I mean, could there be a little bit of rust on Friday night? That game, by the way, at 9 o'clock Eastern, because it is in Berkeley, California. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on for Clemson. Again, it might be nothing, but it is a long way over there and a long flight, I would assume, right?
You gonna stay up and watch that game, Cole? It's hard to stay up and watch.
I can do a 9. I
A
can do a
9 o'clock college game, probably, because that's over by, what, 11:30?
Yeah, but tomorrow night, here's the problem with that. No, it'll be you've got women's basketball to compete with tomorrow night. I'll be watching those games. Carolina plays at 7. So it'll be over. In time to watch. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on it for a little while. Hopefully. I mean, Cal's, we'll see. So Clemson takes on Cal this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 9 o'clock Friday night, 5 o'clock on Saturday, and then a 4 o'clock Sunday rubber match. We'll see. We'll see. It might be a clean sweep, but Clemson playing really well. Diesel, as far as the Gamecocks go, South Carolina did get a win over or during the midweek, if you will, against Presbyterian College after losing 7 straight games. Paul Maneri said after the 7th loss that they were going to give it their all on Tuesday against PC and play like it was Game 7 of the World Series. They are 18-12 overall. You're talking 1-8 in conference play. They've just been bad. There's no other way to put it this year in 2025 for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Diesel. They are in Starkville, Mississippi on the road, 3-game series, 7 o'clock on Friday night, 3 o'clock on Saturday, and then 2 o'clock on Sunday. Again, it's the SEC. Every weekend's tough, but you would feel like for South Carolina, after having a series last week against the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers, then playing North Carolina, then the weekend before that playing the 3rd-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks, Diesel, I guess you can say that they're battle-tested.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta win this series when you're getting a lesser opponent in the SEC, and that means something very different than playing a lesser opponent in the ACC. You got to get the series wins here. You got to get the bats woke up. You gotta get some positive momentum. Your fans are like that close to completely pulling the plug on you for the season.
Mississippi State also 1-8 in conference. So again, we're not talking about a killer Mississippi State baseball team.
Now it would be a killer if you lost the series to a fellow 1-8 team,
or even get, I don't want to say this, but or even get swept. Mississippi State 17-12 on the season. They are 1-8 in conference play. Like I said, South Carolina is matching that in conference play with a 1-8 record as well. And you look at the SEC, both of these teams are toward the very bottom of the SEC rankings right now. Arkansas leads the SEC. Diesel 8-1. Actually, you have 4 teams at 8-1 in conference. Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. All 4 of those teams, between the Razorbacks, Bulldogs, Vols, and Longhorns, are all 8-1. And what's unique is 3 of those 4 teams, Diesel, have already won 27 games this year. Bama, not far behind them, tied with Ole Miss at a 6-3 conference record. Then you start getting to the middle of the pack with Oklahoma 5-4, Auburn 4-5, Kentucky 4-5, Vandy 4-5. And then you have the 1-8s, Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina, A&M, and Mizzou, who is 0-9 on the season in SEC play. You know, it's important, I think, for South Carolina this week. And I know you say, Cole, they're already 1-8 in the conference. It might be a lost cause at this point. But if you want to somehow, some way, Diesel, get hot and rattle off a few wins and get some momentum and somehow, some way try to make the postseason, you could look at this series against Mississippi State and say, look, if they go out there and somehow, some way win the series, or South Carolina could even get the sweep. I know it's going to be tough with them battling some injuries, but boy, that could catapult them into something because, like I said, the SEC's tough, but you've got to start somewhere. And after Mississippi State, they have USC Upstate, A&M, and then Ole Miss.
Well, the scary thing, Cole, is you got to start thinking about next year and what kind of team you're going to have left next year. And there's not going to be a lot. I mean, this is a really veteran team. There's a lot of seniors on this team. So who are you possibly going to be able to bring back? And how many of those guys do you really want back off of a bad team?
It could look a lot different. And it should, because let's be real, we've said this many times, Diesel, that this team's technically not Paul Maneri's team.
It's true.
So to your point, there may be some players who are back. There may be some players who are gone, maybe a mix, and that's probably what it will end up being. But the SEC's tough. The ACC is a tough league as well, not quite as top-heavy as the SEC. Florida State, I think, can hold their own in any conference. Florida State's as good as they get right now, 24-4 overall, 7-2 in the ACC. Like I talked about, they took care of business against Boston College and are off to a really good start, 17-2 at home. So at Tallahassee, they're pretty tough to beat. Clemson right behind them, though, in the ACC, 6-3. Clemson's 19-3 at home. So you look at those two teams, Diesel, Florida State, and Clemson in the ACC. Florida State 17-2 at home, Clemson 19-3. Those two teams battle here in a couple of weeks. That one's in Tallahassee. So Clemson, or I told a buddy of mine yesterday, the day before, we're going to know when you talk about Omaha, we're going to know what type of team Clemson is in terms of if they're an Omaha team when they take that nice trip down to Tallahassee, because Florida State's legit. Wake Forest, they did take 2 of 3 from Wake Forest. I'm not saying Wake Forest isn't as good as we thought they were, but the very next weekend, Wake Forest then got swept by Virginia Tech. So we don't really know how good Tom's squad is this year at Wake. But Clemson, we do know, is very, very good. But I think when you talk about the big picture, you want to be tested against the best, and that Florida State game will show if Clemson can make a run in Omaha.
Cole, yesterday we had a fantastic conversation with Grayson Mann of TigerNet, Clemson Insider, TigerNet, and we had a chat with him about the spring game, what the new format this year is going to be, his opinions and thoughts on potentially playing other teams in spring game, of course, as well as other topics as well. We'll bring that conversation your way again next, right here on the Fan Upstate.
I want to ask Grayson is, what was your instant reaction to not only the departure of Chauncey Wiggins from the Clemson basketball team, but I saw you tweeted out earlier today that Chauncey Wiggins is staying in the ACC, headed to Florida State, down to Tallahassee. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think Tiger fans are going to get a look at Chauncey in the ACC. Obviously a player with a ton of potential, just given the size and the frame, but ultimately one that just didn't really work out. I think for both parties, it was the right move. Chauncey needed a fresh change of scenery, and I think for Clemson, they're looking to probably find that body type, but I think find a little bit more consistency along the way. I think if we look back with hindsight being 2020, if things had gone differently, I think Wiggins would probably be still at Clemson, and we'd have 4 players on this roster instead of 3. But with the way the Louisville game turned out, and then fast forward a week to McNeese and the performances that he gave, I feel like the staff was probably comfortable saying we've gotten out all we can out of this, and it's probably time to move on.
Grayson, I don't know how much access you've had to people and personnel inside the basketball program since the season's ended. It's very fresh for them, and I'm sure they want to kind of take time for themselves first to figure things out. But in your mind, what's the strategy now when it comes to going out and rebuilding this roster essentially from scratch? Because it's something that a lot of coaches very rarely ever have to do. Maybe when they're a brand new coach coming into a new program. It's certainly not something that a coach as entrenched as Brad Brownell has ever had to do or hasn't done in a very long time. So what do you think that strategy is, and how much faith do you have in them and their ability to do it at a high level?
Essentially from scratch is definitely a term that I would use to how this roster is going to have to be constructed. And look, it's not like in years past where they needed maybe 1 or 2 needs and you can go fill that in the portal. It was sort of the strategy that Brownell had built, first with guys like Brevin Galloway, Joe Girard. Then you bring in the Jaden Zacharies and the Victor Lockins of the world. You are going, okay, we only need really 2 here. And now Clemson, like you said, basically has to build their roster. They right now have 6. You have the 3 players that have stayed with Ace Buckner, Dylan Hunter, and Dallas Thomas, plus the 3 freshmen from the 2025 class coming in. But 6 is enough. I don't even think you can field a team with 6 players. So certainly Brownell has got he's got his work cut out for him in the portal. He's proven he's able to get some starters. So I think in terms of his track record, you have confidence that they're going to be able to land some big time players. Obviously, Nick Davidson, one of the top players on the portal, top 5 has got Clemson in there. So it's just a matter of competing with other schools and how much money Clemson's going to be able to allocate to this program to be able to make something happen there. It's definitely a tall task. It's something that I think is pretty unprecedented when we look at what Clemson's been doing for the last several years. But around the country, this isn't exactly a new thing. I mean, there are a lot of players and coaches that have to reconstruct rosters from scratch. So it's going to look like a very different operation here when next winter rolls around to start the season.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Grayson, when you we're going to get to the spring game, I promise, but another tweet that you sent out yesterday about alcohol sales coming to Clemson. Obviously, we've touched on that a little bit since that tweet went out yesterday, but can you go into a little bit of detail in terms of what that will look like? And I believe you said that was going to start on Saturday. Is that right?
Right. The spring game is going to be basically the trial version of what alcohol sales will look like at Clemson, followed by baseball and softball rolling a piloted version out on April 7th. I imagine they're going to be experimenting a lot before the football season truly begins, so they can work out some kinks, certainly with how people get this, what vendors are allowed to potentially sell it. I think with dealing with the university, it's a lot of different moving parts that they're going to have to work out. And so you sort of have an opportunity with a smaller crowd, in theory, to be able to work this out before you have to pack 80,000 fans, with a lot of them certainly wanting to get some alcohol in their system for a game. And so there's just a lot of moving parts. But I think for Clemson, it's a smart move to launch this now. You can work out all the bumps and bruises, per se. And then when you get to the LSU game, you sort of have an understanding of what the standard is and the operation that they're going to want to throw out. It's fascinating to research all this, Cole and Diesel. When you look at it, Clemson was one of the few schools who was actually not offering, and the other 2 being in Utah, where the population is 55% Mormon. So you sort of have the understanding of why they're not doing it. So I think it's good for Clemson to get on board. you're going to be able to add an extra source of revenue. They just have to do it the right way. And so I think starting it now with smaller crowds is how you do it.
Grayson, I know a lot of schools and major sports franchises as well. They have their own beers that they can sell on sites for a reduced cost as compared to, a national brand. Do you know if Clemson is going to have its own beer for sale?
As of right now, I don't have that information, but I wouldn't be shocked if Clemson starts to partner with any potential brands and try to get some sort of exclusive deal nailed down. Maybe that's already in the works. I'm not privy to any information on that front, but I do think that's probably the line of thinking that they're going across. Again, I don't want to speak for anybody or any of the planning that's going down. This is one of those areas I'm not entirely well versed in when it comes to information, but I could imagine you could hear probably in August or July where you have, let's just throw Michelob Ultra out there. You go the exclusive beer of the Clemson Tigers. I don't know. That just sounds like something they probably will sink their teeth into.
Grayson, these spring games just a few days away. Obviously, we'll dive deep into the details of what fans might expect to see or might not expect to see. Obviously, as we all know how spring games go. But what do you think, from a Grayson man point of view, is the one thing that you're looking forward to the most in this spring game?
I think the fact that it's different, Cole, the way it's sort of formatted, we just got the release here of how the points is going to be allocated in their little scoring system. And Sweeney has said it's going to be different, but he's sort of excited about the way that they can process this. It's in-house. They're not having to worry about TV timeouts or any of the commercialized aspects of the ACC network. And so you get to sort of do your own thing. And I think that could be unique for players, for fans. Certainly, since there's not a TV broadcast, there is a high incentive if you want to catch the Tigers before the LSU matchup. You might want to get down to Death Valley on April 5th and catch the spring game. But some players, certainly, there are going to be a lot of people that get to shine. And there's a lot of conversation across the country about how we're going to handle the nature of the spring game. How do certain programs that are worried about tampering, how does that get processed, I guess, is a good way to put it. So we're going to see how Clemson navigates that aspect of it. And I guess not having it on TV keeps you from certain things happening. But obviously, we've seen certain things. We've seen the Michigan documentary. Things can happen. But I think different is a good way to describe it. And that's going to be exciting for, I think, people that cover it is we get to all experience this thing for the first time, which I think is fascinating.
Grayson, you, I, Cole, none of us are strangers to game day operations and covering things on game day. Are you going to be doing anything different for the spring game, or is it going to be kind of a dry run, first run of the year for you as well? What does your spring game day look like?
I think it's going to come down to how can we at TigerNet sort of provide sort of giving you the look and the experience without having to turn on the TV, fill as much information as possible. Essentially, we've become the eyes and ears more than ever. It feels like sort of old-fashioned where there's no TV broadcast, so we really have to rely on the press for the information. So it feels like a little bit of a throwback when you really think about it. So I think my strategy is going to be what things am I seeing down there that obviously fans who aren't in attendance, how can I inform them in the right and the most accurate way possible? So it's going to be different. Obviously, there's not any highlights to look back on. You can't throw a couple clips on the Twitter timeline to give people more context. There's going to be a lot of explaining and a lot of note taking, I think, on my end, just trying to take it all in. How different is it? What players are shining? Certainly, I have a list of guys, I'm sure we'll get into that in a bit, of people that I'm looking out for. But I think different's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Let's hear the list.
I think for starters, I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to Christopher Vezina. This is undoubtedly the most important snaps of his Clemson career because he's next up, in theory, behind Cade Klubnik after he departs for the NFL once this 2025 season concludes. How much of a step has he taken in his development? Because I have the opinion if Christopher Vezina is not ready, I do believe it's in Clemson's best interest to go into the transfer portal and grab a quarterback. Now, that's not based on any information that I have. That's just my personal opinion, is that Dabo Swinney has been saying on the record that he will do what is best for the team. Not entirely sure your 2026 quarterbacks will be ready yet, and necessarily you don't want to put your all eggs on the freshman basket just because you haven't seen them on a college field. So if Vezina comes out there and it's another shaky performance, I think there's going to be a lot of conversations that need to be had in preparation for who's next behind Klubnik. And then behind that, I think for me, it's going to be watching Braden Jacobs and Gideon Davidson, two freshmen on the offensive side of the ball that have really flashed. Talked to a couple receivers this week who said, and this is one of the fun questions we get to ask in the spring, is who of the young guys, this is their time to shine, who stood out? And the names that I keep hearing are Davidson and Jacobs being two players that really have a smooth polish to their game, which is rare for a mid-year to walk into campus and really sort of own the operation. And so those are the two, at least on the mid-year side. And then, of course, you have the transfers, the Tristan Smith, the Will Helps, and the Jeremiah Alexanders of the world. But I think for a lot of Clemson fans, it's let's see what the future looks like. And I think those first three names that I mentioned are going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists.
Grayson, I know a lot of Clemson fans were a little concerned, mildly concerned is probably the best word to use it, at the tail end of those previous sessions before players were released to go off and do their spring break. Cade Klubnik didn't look good. Dabo Swinney talked about it in the media, that his head just wasn't in it. Can you tell us what's developed since then, since Cade has returned?
And we talked to Cade a couple days ago, and he actually was just a joking back and forth that he was kind of upset that Swinney was mentioning all of that. But I think the standard is just higher for Klubnik, and you have to sort of be really picky with his performance. And so when that bar is raised, it's really a different world than last year, where if we had heard those same comments, it's oh no, like what, this guy is falling apart. This is supposed to be your quarterback. What's next? And now it's sort of, okay, he didn't play too many drives. I think it's more of just the coach trying to get fire up the quarterback a little bit, trying to get him to prove something. And I think it also sends a message to the rest of your team when the Heisman Trophy potential quarterback is getting barked at by Coach Swinney. It makes everyone tighten those chin straps just a little bit more and really get going. So I think you have to always find that balance. And for Klubnik, this isn't a spring where we're concerned about what product is going to come. We've seen the best of it so far, and there's potentially more that he can tap into. So the more you can press that standard, I think for this group, we've talked to a lot of players that say that the accountability of practice has taken a significant leap. And I think for all the coaches and players involved, hearing Klubnik get chewed out is probably the definition of that accountability is, oh man, if he's getting yelled at, then something I'm doing right needs to be a little bit better. So I think it can only serve as a positive for this group. And I certainly, if you're a Clemson fan, I wouldn't necessarily worry about Klubnik's spring performance. I think we know what we have, or you know what you have in him at this point in his career.
Grayson, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but instead of a split squad setup like previous years, it'll be orange team offense on Saturday versus the white team defense. Within that, they'll have a scoring system where a safety, field goal, PAT equates to a certain amount of points. Can you go into that and what Clemson fans should expect to see on Saturday?
Yeah, it's going to be different, like I said earlier. And so the way it's sort of set up is that the offense, you have your 2-point conversions, you have your field goals, you have your touchdown plus your PAT. That's all going to count for the same. But the defense now, if you go 3 and out, that's worth a point. You miss a PAT, that's worth a point. You get a 2-point conversion stop, the defense is rewarded with 2 points. The takeaway is 3. It's sort of got a 7-on-7 scoring feel to it, which is kind of unique. And I think that's kind of fascinating to dive into it. But especially with the injuries, it's sort of been tough for Clemson, where you can't really split the teams fairly. You can't really find that right balance. So instead of that, you're just going for a true offense versus defense. So you're going to get a legitimate look. You're going to see how the best stack up against the best. And I think that's the best way for fans to get an evaluation in April versus having to sort of look at, oh, well, Wesco did have this catch, but was it against a fourth-string corner is the question. So how much stock do you put into it? If, let's say, Christian Bentoncourt comes out there and runs a little whip route on a slot corner, and you're like, oh, wow, that's something there to really note down versus, okay, that's this competition versus that competition. How do we really evaluate that? I think this gives media and fans the best look possible on Saturday.
Grayson Mann covers Clemson for Tiger Net. Find him on Twitter at Gray_man with 2 N's 21. The NCAA Oversight Committee rejected the proposal put forth by Deion Sanders and Fran Brown of Syracuse to be allowed to play against other teams in spring games. As we've just spent the last couple of minutes talking about Clemson's spring game. What are your general thoughts on a potential future where Clemson could pick and choose their own opponent to play in a spring game? Do you like the idea at all, or are you more of a cautious guy who says, well, we could get guys hurt against another team in the spring?
I mean, it's the same stance you take in the NFL preseason. You want to get a look against a different team. And I really do hope the NCAA and course corrects in the next several months and looks sort of at the feedback. I think it would be a fascinating thing for college football to have. They're really the only sport where they don't get to see another team. Frankly, high school football does it. The NFL does it. They're really the only level where you don't get another look at another team. And so you're sort of forced to scrimmage in-house. And I think for a lot of college football teams, there could be some fascinating storylines where Syracuse and Colorado match up. A Syracuse team that was on the rise in the ACC plays Coach Prime in April. I think that's something a lot of people would want to tune into. And you could probably get a lot of really cool deals out of it where different schools get to travel to different parts. You have these inter-squad scrimmages. You can sort of model it after the NFL where you practice, you have sort of an agreement in the off season where, let's say, North Carolina State wants to come down to Clemson for a week and they practice against each other. You get a different look. And then on Saturday night, there's a scrimmage with set rules because you can sort of work your way around, hey, we don't want XYZ to get hit. You can still put the jerseys on the quarterback to signify they're off limits till the fall. There are ways you can work around things. You can really hold someone to certain reps. So I think there's workarounds for it in terms of injury. Someone like me who wants to consume the sport as much as possible, these kind of spring squad scrimmages would be really fascinating. And I think something that a lot of fans truly want. And I hope that idea at some point is fixed because that would be, I'd sign up for that 10 times out of 10, 100 times. It would be great.
Grayson, my last question for you. Dabo Swinney was on the ACC network last night and talked about the running back position as the position that he was keeping his eye on the most with, obviously, Adam Randall, who was a wide receiver, Jay Haynes, you mentioned Gideon Davidson. If you looked into your crystal ball, who do you think will be the starter in August?
If I had to make a guess right now, and obviously a lot can change now and then. Now, I have one opinion, but I also have what's going to be the choice of the staff is I do believe Adam Randall will start week one, but I would not be shocked if Gideon Davidson is out there taking the lion's share of the carries and eventually taking over in a way that Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore did, where it's evident that they're the best player for that position. It's just going to take a while for them to get used to the speed of the game. And I think this is where, to just circle back a little bit, is where if you get those inter-squad scrimmages, you can see some of your players against familiar competition where, okay, we have Gideon Davidson going up against Colorado's linebackers. Let's see how he does against that. We have an actual look at how these quarterback battles get decided in the preseason because they're playing different teams other than themselves. So there's a more accurate assessment of how these things are laid out. Sorry to go on a tangent there.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be shocked if Gideon Davidson is starting either early on or week one. I do believe he's eventually going to be the best guy in the room by far. I think that Adam Randall's going to have a special place in this offense. But in my mind, I just don't envision it quite yet of him being the one that takes the carries on 1st and 10. You got your typical dive, your zone reads. It could work. It's just a matter of seeing it. I need to see it on the field first. And I think this spring's going to be, obviously, Sweeney's got his eye on it, and I think the rest of the Clemson faithful do for sure. How does Adam Randall look taking carries on a consistent basis? How does he take the snaps? How does he do X, Y, and Z? There's a lot of questions that we really didn't get answered against Texas just because we were still in the moment of, wow, Adam Randall's a running back. How does that work? Now we get to see it, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Grayson, I know that you primarily cover Clemson for the sake of covering Clemson, not what they do after they leave. But with the NFL draft now just 3 weeks away, and depending on which mock draft you look at, I don't see a single Clemson player listed as a mock to go in the first round. Does that concern you at all?
I don't think so. I think that once you get to the NFL, you have your evaluators. And we've always had this subject of great college players that just don't really pan out in the NFL. There's always going to be examples of that. I think getting drafted and sent to the league is an incredibly big deal. And so for Clemson, they're going to continue to pull that. They're going to have multiple players drafted. It's just a matter of where. And I think that probably stands out just because of those first-round picks. There's only 32 of them, so it sometimes just isn't your year with that high kind of talent. But I think when we're having this conversation next year, if you guys are not sick of me already, the guys like Klubnik, the guys like Peter Woods, the guys like TJ Parker, you'll be mock drafting a lot, I'm sure, next spring to see how those guys end up in the NFL.
Grayson, you're the best. We always appreciate your time, and we'll see you on Saturday, man.
Absolutely, man. Can't wait.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. if you are a fan of seeing Steph Curry and LeBron James go at it, add in Jimmy Butler, add in Luka Doncic, if you're an NBA fan, all on the same floor tonight. I'm looking forward to this one, Diesel. You asked me if I was going to stay up tomorrow night to watch Clemson baseball at like 9 o'clock. We'll see. But, I am an NBA guy, and I will be staying up tonight to watch the Warriors and the Lakers at 10 o'clock. I hate that it's at 10, but it is what it is on the West Coast. A game tonight that could be a preview of what's to come in the playoffs, potentially in the first round. Major playoff implications on the line tonight. Currently, the Lakers sit at the 3rd spot in the Western Conference, while the Warriors aren't far behind them at 44-31 in the 5th spot. With how tight these standings are, Diesel, each game really means a ton here in the next, I think there are only 6 games left in the NBA season. So the Lakers do already hold the tiebreaker over the Warriors, having beaten them in all 3 prior meetings. But this is finally Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry versus LeBron and Luka. If you aren't an NBA guy like I am, could a potential first-round matchup with the stars that I just mentioned, with Butler, Curry, LeBron, and Luka, do you think that might be, for an average basketball fan, do you think that might be enough to get someone's attention for the first round, which is normally an okay round?
Probably not.
Not for you.
It should be. It should be. But number one, is this the nationally televised game tonight? Will everyone be able to watch it?
Yeah, it'll be.
Okay.
I believe on T.
Okay, so
Yeah,
nationally
TNT.
Televised game. It's viewable for everybody. That's good. That's a start. Is this matchup going to change someone's mind? Somebody who is either a extreme casual like me, or doesn't watch at all? I wouldn't think so.
I just think that if you might
It's
be
going to
right
be a
on the-
fantastic game.
On the extreme casual side, again, you're probably right. It would probably take something catastrophic to get the extreme casual involved, or and interested in the NBA. But man, for somebody who does enjoy the NBA, I think tonight's game could be as good as advertised, because you're talking about a game that has such serious weight. And that's the beauty of the down the stretch games, Diesel, in the NBA. Like I said, with only like 6 games remaining before the playoffs, this tonight's essentially a playoff game. And both teams are coming off of big wins. Curry just came off of a 52-point performance. Between Curry, LeBron, Luka, and Jimmy Butler, I don't know that you're going to get as much star power in any other game. Oh, throw in Austin Reeves, who is exceptional. Draymond Green, obviously, he might try to fight somebody, right? But it could be decided by the role players.
Now,
This one's
that
gonna be
is
fun.
how you get people to watch.
Well,
Draymond gets in a fight.
You never know. Draymond, it's very possible. I mean, it's very possible with him out there. Luka, Reeves, Rui, LeBron, Jackson, Hayes, starting 5 tonight versus Steph, Brandon, Moses Moody, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. Obviously, these are 2 good teams, but I think the Lakers are favored by 1.5 points, and I think I'm going to go with the Lakers tonight.
I was joking there, but do you feel like leagues who are maybe struggling with growth or struggling with shrinking their fan base a little bit, how should they react to the people who want the game to fundamentally change to get new people watching? Or wanting things to get weird to get people watching?
I like
essentially asking traditional games to turn themselves into gimmicks to get new fans. I don't know.
No,
if that's
I like
necessarily
weird.
a good
I
thing.
like weird. I like. I mean, look, I'm not encouraging fighting.
But you are. But do you
It's
like? You do
fun.
like gimmicks?
It's fun. Yeah, it depends what it is.
It's fair. Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole, Bryce and Tolo's a blast as always. I'm off tomorrow. Cole's going to be holding it down solo. I'll be back. We'll be at full strength again on Monday, right here on the Fan Upstate.